we have such parity in the NL Central, they should be able to stay in the race for quite some time. But I think when you look at this team and you say, when can they contend again? When can they contend and be a legitimate threat in the playoffs or World Series? There's a long way to go. And I think when you're in that situation, there's only one thing to do at the deadline, and that's to sell.
That was Jim Bowden on the show earlier this week. He is not a believer in the St. Louis Cardinals as a playoff team. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We got Bradford Bruns in with us today. T-Bone off. He'll be back in on Monday. Alex, you know, I disagree with Jim Bowden.
Oh, I know, buddy.
I'm much more of a believer in the St. Louis Cardinals in 2024 than Bowden is. And part of the reason why is because I don't think you see a lot of teams that are bad, genuinely bad, play the way that the Cardinals have over the last 3 weeks. Alex, the Cardinals woke up on May 12th, and they were 15-24. They were in last place in the NL Central. They were 9 games back of Milwaukee in the division. The Padres at that point held the third wildcard spot. They remain in the third wildcard spot today. The Cardinals were 4.5 games back of the Padres with like 150 teams between them and the Padres in the wildcard standings. Now, fast forward, 19 days later, 15 games for the Cardinals later. They are second in the Central, sole possession of second place now. They are up on the Cubs after the Cubs got their ass kicked against the Brewers. They are 5 games back of Milwaukee in this division now instead of 9 games back. And they are just a half game back of the Padres for that last wild card spot. Man, it's hard to play this well over any 15-game stretch. Yeah, it's 15 games. That's 10% of your season. There's a lot of baseball that remains to be played. But they're playing damn good baseball right now. And I believe the most impressive series that we've seen from them was against the Orioles. That was the one where you're like, oh, okay, they're doing a little something here. And then you see them against the Cubs, and I think they had their best win of the season against the Cubs. That opened my eyes to, okay, that wasn't a one-off. There's something more here. Now you go up against the Phillies this weekend. You've got an opportunity to play against arguably the best team in Major League Baseball with stars littered throughout their lineup. This is where I believe they can prove to people like Jim Bowden, this is more than just a flash in the pan. They actually have something going here that might be sustainable. How are you feeling about the Cardinals heading into this series?
This is it. This is the series for me that if you want me to put this conductor hat on and look like conductor idiot over here, like BK, choo-choo.
I cannot wait for you to do that on Tuesday. I'll be on the morning show on Monday. Tuesday, man. I cannot wait.
People, I'm going to do it on Monday when you're not here, just in case. But this is the series. You've got 4 games against arguably the best team in Major League Baseball right now. You're going up against one of the best offenses in Major League Baseball right now, and your team is playing as hot as it has since last year in that 3-week stretch where you brought yourself, no surprise, in the same scenario, 5 games out of first place in the NL Central. This is the difference maker for me, because if you can go out there for 4 series on the road in Philadelphia against that hot of an offense and continue your streak of not only limiting other teams' offenses, but you're going out there and hitting around some of the best pitching in Major League Baseball. To me, this is the moment where, and I think I'm like leading the charge of Cardinals doubters right now, like I'm in front. This is the moment where we say, there's no more denying. Everything is clicked right now for this Cardinals team. You're surpassing that 3-week hot stretch and turning into, hey, this is a month of great baseball. And you've done it against Baltimore. You did it against Chicago. You did it against Philadelphia. There's no more excuses beyond this series.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. BK, 2 weeks ago, you called it a season, said they were dead, and held a funeral for them. Sure did.
Yeah, and me too.
Sure did.
Me too.
And now they're back. They are very much alive and well.
And welcome to the season that is Cardinals baseball.
I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is what the season has been. It felt over 3 weeks ago. And over the last 3 weeks, they've played really inspired baseball to get them back on track. Alex, since May 12th, the Cardinals are 12-3. And in that span, they're first in Major League Baseball in batting average and in on-base percentage. They are second in Major League Baseball in slugging percentage. They are second in OPS plus, so that adjusts for the ballparks and everything that they've been playing in. They are tied for 10th in stolen bases, so they're getting back to the running game a bit. And they're top half of the league in both starting pitching and bullpen ERA. You're 10th in Major League Baseball in starting pitching ERA with a 3.6 over your last 15 games. They're playing like a good team. You're seeing the offense carry them. The bullpen is nailing things down at the back end, and you're having a rotation that's holding up its own. You're going out there and getting quality starts on a regular basis. This is the team that I thought they would be. You guys know I was excited about the team heading into the regular season. This is what I thought it would look like. Not 12-3 over every 15-game stretch, but generally speaking, a good offense, solid rotation, dynamic bullpen at the back end of things with better defense than what you saw a year ago. And it's one thing to do that for a 15-game stretch, especially against teams like the Reds, for example. It's another thing entirely to be able to sustain that and do it against a team like the Phillies on the road, hostile environment against Aaron Nola and Suarez, who might be the National League Cy Young winner right now as of today. This is a huge test for the Cardinals, and they will be doing it according to a press release that was just sent out without Lars Nootbaar. Lars Nootbaar once again headed to the 10-day IL with an oblique strain. They're calling up Jose Fermin. We kind of expected this after it was announced yesterday. Fermin was not in the lineup down in AAA, and he was not seen at the ballpark in Memphis yesterday either. Alex, how much does this change, if at all, your expectations going into the series that the Cardinals will not be playing it with Lars Nootbaar in the outfield?
I mean, it impacts it a little because you are losing a at least impactful bat over this last 3-week stretch of what Nootbaar has provided. And as we talked about yesterday, defensively, you're taking a little bit of a step back. But look, let's go down this path where you're taking on a right-handed hitter with Aaron Nola. I don't think your lineup suffers that much because you're still going to have Brendan Donovan, Masyn Winn, Alec Burleson, Nolan Gorman, Goldschmidt, Arenado, Ivan Herrera. Just listed off 8 guys. So we're talking about one other player, which honestly, if you're taking on as many righties as you're expected to, you're going to have Matt Carpenter in there as probably your DH with Alec Burleson in the outfield or Michael Ciani playing center field for you. To me, it impacts defensively if you're going to be having a lot of balls hit to the outfield and if you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. But this pitching has done a really decent job of avoiding putting themselves into deep holes because of their defense. And I think your offense is going to be able to withstand the loss of a Lars Nootbaar because everyone else is hitting right now, except for Nolan Arenado, who you probably should have played in that last game against the Cincinnati Reds.
I'm a little worried about the defense. The defense in the outfield could be a problem for you. Now, one of these games, you're going up against a lefty. I would imagine you'll see Dylan Carlson out there for that one. That you should be fine defensively for that game. Otherwise, you're going to have Alec Burleson out there. It's a big test for him, man. This is he's been one of your best hitters so far this year. And he's going to get an opportunity in this series to be in the outfield every day. That would be my assumption. We'll see. See what that looks like.
But you have the defensive replacement of Dylan Carlson in those games late if you get up. And that's the hope right now. You get up early and you can use defensive replacements late.
Absolutely. The other thing that this is going to do for you is now you're going to have somebody else that will be in the lineup as a designated hitter other than Brendan Donovan. I'm guessing that's going to be Matt Carpenter for the 2 games against right-handed pitching. That's where I think you're going to feel this loss the most. Yeah. It's not so much who's going to be out there in the outfield. It's you're basically replacing Lars Nootbaar with Matt Carpenter, or against a lefty. I'm guessing you'll be replacing him with Jose Fermin. So that's not ideal, to put it lightly. I think that's where you're going to miss him. I do think this offense is going to take a bit of a step back. Having that high on base percentage, a guy that's good on the bases, and as a plus defender in the outfield, that's where you're really going to miss him. But this goes back to what we had as a conversation the other day. I don't think you can count as the Cardinals on more than 110 games in any regular season now from Lars Nootbaar. Yeah. It's just something that he's dealt with over the last 3 seasons since becoming a big leaguer. It's always something. I'm not blaming him. Some guys are just more injury prone than others, and it feels like that is something that we're going to have to deal with Lars Nootbaar.
To me, I feel like it's a really good opportunity to put Masyn Winn in one of the top 2 hitting spots, because for you can find out if he remains to be this leadoff hitter that's done so well, at least in the opportunities he's been presented, and Brendan Donovan can be a 2-hole hitter for you. Like, as much as, and you are going to miss him, right now Gorman's hitting, Burleson's hitting, Goldie's hitting, Wynn's hitting, Donovan's hitting. You hope Arenado's hitting. Those are 6 guys that should be able to carry the load with or without Lars Nootbaar, and you're relying on a couple of other guys that are supposed to be complementary pieces. Well, this is your opportunity to shine. Step in when an injury is happening. This is your role on the team. Carpenter, Fermin, Dylan Carlson. Yep. Step into these spots and just be a complementary piece. You don't need to be Nootbaar. You've got 6 other guys that are going to hopefully carry this offense. Just be the complementary piece that they're going to need.
Okay, no pressure. Just do it against the best team in baseball with the best ERA in baseball. It'll be fine.
You want to be the man?
It'll be fine.
You want to be the man? Beat the man.
This is a big series for Nolan Arenado. If you're going to be able to go out there and have success against a team like Philadelphia, and you're losing Lars Nootbaar now as a part of your lineup, it's a huge series for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt to once again regain form. Goldie's been doing that for about 10 days. Nolan Arenado's done it for 1. People think that was the jumping off point. I'm not ready to go there with him just yet, but this would be a good time for him to show, okay, you found something with your swing. Let's see what that looks like.
I think it's a big series for Brandon Crawford.
I think it should be a series where Brandon Crawford doesn't see the field. So I guess that's where we differ.
I guess we'll find out. That's where my conductor hat goes in the trash.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat is off and running. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. That is where the graveyard chat is available for you. If you guys want to go over there, go ahead and check us out on YouTube. Again, YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. Studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Coming up later on this hour, we'll get into Ask Us Anything, so get your questions in now. We'll take any questions, sports or otherwise. But next, Drew Bannister had an interesting message earlier today about what he's seeing in the NHL postseason. He had a conversation about what the style of play is. It sure reminds me of something we've heard from somebody else. I just can't put my finger on who that is. We'll get to that next here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Brooke Grimsley here for your Redbird report. After taking 2 of 3 against the Reds, reaching the 500 mark for the first time since April 16th, the Cardinals will face their toughest test of the road trip with the 3-game series against the Phillies starting tonight, who have the best record in the National League. Miles Michaelis and Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn are the scheduled starters for the Cardinals this weekend. Michaelis will be going for his first win against the Phillies in his career. On the other side, Aaron Nola getting the starting nod. He is 7-3 with a 2.54 ERA and 12 career starts against the Cardinals. First pitch will be at 5:40.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Attention 101 listeners.
You can join Kyle Gibson, Tommy Edman, Paul Goldschmidt, Ryan Helsley, Nolan Arenado, Steven Matz, and Miles Michaelis
In supporting some amazing causes during Big League Impact's All-Win campaign.
Consider making a donation in exchange for fun prizes and giveaways from Big League Impact. See the full list of foundations and programs being supported by this year's campaign and find all the details on how you can help support this year's All-Win Drive.
With Big League Impact, now at 101ESPN.com.
They are Here's St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
All right, Alex, I'm going to read you a quote. You tell me who said this, okay?
Oh, no.
Quote, "It's a physical affair. All of the teams play direct. They're pretty predictable in the way that they play, the similarities that they play in. I don't think we're seeing anything all that different than what we saw during the regular season when we played against Dallas or Florida. I think they're the same teams. It's just that they're able to sustain it and do it on a nightly basis," end quote.
Oh, that's Craig Berube.
It's Drew Bannister, but it could have been Craig Berube, who had a fantastic interview yesterday on the Fast Lane with the guys. If you want to check that out, you can see it on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, or the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Instead, that was Drew Bannister, the new Blues head coach, with the exact same message, just from a different person instead, in a slightly different way, slightly different tone than what we previously heard from Craig Berube. Alex, these coaches are all basically saying the same thing. Play direct, play physical, get the puck, maintain puck possession, and put shots on net. They're all saying basically the same thing. It's about how they get to that style of play that maybe is a little bit different. But when you hear that from Bannister and you think about what the Blues need to do to get to that style of play, what does it tell you about how they should be planning their offseason?
It tells me that, to me, the last sentence is the part that's stuck. I think they're the same team. It's just they're able to sustain it on a nightly basis. What if I were to tell you, BK, that the Blues did not lose in regulation to Edmonton or Dallas last season? And those are two teams that are fighting for the Stanley Cup championship right now. They did not lose to them in regulation. There were 3 losses in overtime, and they beat them 4 times.
So every time they played against them, they at least earned a point.
They were within a point, or they were within a goal. They picked up a point against them. You're right. To me, that's why that last line sticks so much. I think they're the same team. It's just that they're able to sustain it on a nightly basis, and basically he's saying we were not. The Blues were good against teams in the playoffs. They were good against teams that were going to be playoff contenders. You know what their problem was? The San Jose Sharks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Arizona Coyotes, the crappy teams. The Blues were different teams than what they were against the superior teams. So if you're trying to adjust this offseason, I think the first thing you got to do is you have to look at your internal roster and say, where were our problems? Like the Cardinals did this in the offseason. They're like, where were the problems for us? Felt like a lot of personnel issues in terms of internal arguments. Jack Flaherty, Tyler O'Neill, they go on, they have more success. I think the Blues have to figure out, is this the roster that can get consistency back into their game? And then you have to look at the physicality, because the physicality is why those teams can sustain the same play on a nightly basis. When you don't have your best stuff, when Matthew Tkachuk, who was, I think he had like 5 goals in the first 2 months of the season for the Florida Panthers, when you don't have your best stuff, what else are you doing on the ice? The Blues, when they wouldn't have their offense or their power play, they crumbled. You got to have something that you can turn to, and that's the physicality that all 4 of these teams provide.
Yeah, I think some of it is better players are more consistent. I mean, think about what we talk about with the Cardinals, right? Paul Goldschmidt, in his prime, at least prior to this season, typically was kind of the every day you knew what you were getting. He's going to be, over the course of the entirety of the season, a 280, 290, 300 hitter. That's who Paul Goldschmidt has always been. And the ebbs and flows aren't necessarily there as much. Nolan Gorman, that dude is going to be erratic. 1 month he's going to hit 300 with 7 bombs. The next month he's going to hit 165 with 3 home runs. And the valleys are really low, but the peaks are really high. I feel like the Blues last year were kind of Nolan Gorman. Like they were Nolan Gorman personified on the hockey ice. Like every night, it could be anything. Mm-hmm. It could be they go out there and take on the New York Rangers on the road in Madison Square Garden and look like one of the best teams in the NHL. And the very next night, they could lose 2-0 against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that's what you've got to get fixed. And I think that's about personnel. I think players that are in the age range that the Florida Panthers have, by the way, they've got a lot of superstars as well, those guys are able to maintain their consistent play in a way that the Blues just can't right now. Like, I think eventually you're going to get a pretty good player out of a guy like Zach Bolduc. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's in a place right now in his career where you know what to expect from him night in and night out. And honestly, play to play. I think that's what they're waiting for. I think that is where they're trying to build that consistent level of play. What they need more of, though, is consistency out of their veterans.
Yeah.
Can I get more consistency out of Braden Shin, out of Justin Falk, out of Pavel Buchnevich? Because I shouldn't be questioning going into each game, okay, what am I getting out of these guys? Mm-hmm. They're making money. They're highly paid. They were brought in here for a reason. And when you don't get consistency out of your veterans, I think that is where things really go awry. And that was the biggest issue for the Blues last year, in my opinion, is it didn't feel like a lot of nights you knew what to get out of your veterans.
Yeah. The ebbs and flows of the season, you have to have guys that pick up the slack for your stars. Like, I just looked at this. So the first 29 games of the season for Matthew Tkachuk, and I did this for a reason, he had 5 goals and 20 points and was a -2 in 29 games. That was his point total. Jordan Kyrou in the first 29 games, and this was up to when Drew Bannister was fired.
Yep.
5 goals, 18 points, and was a -6. They were the same player. The difference was the Florida Panthers, when they didn't have Matthew Tkachuk, guess who you had stepping up? Sam Reinhart, you had Barkov stepping up, and that goes to the talent that you're talking about. But that is the veteran presence that when you're inconsistent with one player, other guys have the consistency to their game. Where's Braden Shen at? Where's Pavel Buchnevich at? Where's Robert Thomas at? Those are the guys that have to find a way to pick up the slack. And I don't think the Blues can fix that in one offseason because you're relying on younger players to be that depth for you. You're going to be relying on Dvorsky and Bolduc and Jake Neighbors and Jimmy Snuggerud. And those guys are going to take a couple of years to get to that level. But the hope in what Drew Bannister is trying to do when he's assessing the playoffs is get those younger players to a consistent level at the NHL level, just like the veteran players, so that when one side of your team slacks, the other lifts them up like these teams did.
I'm just curious. So you brought up the stretch of games where the Blues got very little out of Jordan Kyrou and the Panthers got very little out of Matthew Tkachuk. Do you have the dates on that?
Yeah, I do. It was from the start of the season until December 14th.
December 14th.
That was when Drew Bannister started his first game.
The reason why I ask is because at that point in the season, the Florida Panthers were at a .621 points percentage. So they were still top 10 in the NHL.
Yep.
I'm curious. I bet you they were among the best teams in the NHL in goals allowed per game. They were. They were 7th in the league in goals allowed per game. That, to me, is the equivalent of a team that pitches really well. You know your offense is going to go through slumps. It's hard to score goals. It's hard to score runs in Major League Baseball, right? It's why the current version of the St. Louis Cardinals is a really hard way to win when you're scoring 4, 5, 6 runs every single night on average. Eventually, that run production's not going to be there. Your entire lineup will not be hitting for the entirety of the season. The Panthers play a style, and they have the defense to be able to withstand those droughts that you have from a Matthew Tkachuk or Reinhart or Verhaeghe. Like, when their stars go quiet for a little bit, they're able to make up for it with unbelievable defense. The Blues don't have that.
Yeah.
Until the Blues get their defensive game back on track, they will not be able to be a legitimate contender because that is where things so wildly swing from one direction to another.
And that's why when I look at this roster and why we've talked about, like, what's priority number one for Doug Armstrong to figure out, I still stick on defense. I still say you've got to find another top 4 defenseman to play with the group that is Nick Leddy, Colton Parayko, and Justin Falk. And I didn't put Torrey Krug into that for a reason. They used him in the top 4, and I don't think he was a top 4 defenseman for you. You've got to adjust that. Like, if you look at what you're talking about with the Panthers in that time frame, the Blues were right there with them in terms of goals scored per game, 2.93 to 2.86. The difference was Florida, 2.6 goals against per game. St. Louis was 3.28.
And that's the difference between being a basically top 5 team in goals allowed per game and being a bottom 10 team in goals allowed per game. And that's with good goaltending.
Yes, I was going to say, mind you, that wasn't because of Jordan Binnington being bad, because I know somebody's out there listening going, that's why Binnington needs to be traded. No, that's not why.
Yeah, the Blues have good goaltending. They have terrible defense at times.
And power play, by the way, this was the difference in power play for those two teams. 17% for Florida, which is, middle of the pack. Blues are at 8%. You got to fix that one, too, which, guess what? You can fix both of those by going out there to get a top 4 defenseman who can do power play and penalty kill.
Good luck. Those guys don't exist. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. In 15 minutes, we'll get to Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for any of your questions, sports or otherwise. But coming up next, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters, including the team that will be featured this year on Hard Knocks, and we've got a ranking of the best general managers in the NHL. I wonder where Alex agrees agrees and disagrees on this list. We'll get to it next year on 101 ESPN.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com.
Ignoring stress doesn't make it go away. It makes it worse. Vaping can make stress worse too. Nicotine can overload you with neurotransmitters, tricking your brain into feeling like your stress is handled. But in reality, it can increase the chemicals associated with stress in your body. You can't ignore your problems, but you can choose to not make them worse.
Learn more at BehindTheHazeMO.com.
Major League Baseball is back on ESPN. Tomorrow, Orioles and Rays. Pre-game at 2:30. First pitch at 3:05. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN. Sports Center.
Redbirds resume road trip in Philly. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. After a one-day break, the Cardinals take aim at victory number 28 tonight. They tackle National League best Philadelphia shortly before 6 p.m. Miles Michaelis faces off against Bryce Harper and company. Last weekend, the veteran righty tossed 6 innings of 3-run ball. Aaron Nola, meanwhile, goes for Rob Thompson's club. Hockey, Florida edged New York 3-2 about 13 hours ago on 101 ESPN. The Panthers could clinch another Eastern Conference final trophy by winning Game 6 tomorrow. That 7 o'clock puck drop will happen and follow an AL East showdown, Orioles-Rays, on these very airwaves. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we ride. Are you kidding me?
On ESPN.
What is this? This is the music we're using today for NFL Quick Hitters.
Is this the theme song to Pink Panther?
This is the old school NFL film song. Like old school. I feel like I've got... We got to talk about the Raiders.
You don't like the vintage? No.
It doesn't do it for me. He's Alex Ferrario. That's Bradford Bruns. You're switching up the music for us a little bit today for NFL Quick Hitters. Alex, I have a list for you. I know you're a big list guy. Well, over on NBC Sports, they put out a ranking today of the best general managers in the NFL. I want to get your thoughts on the top 5 general managers in the NFL right now, and we'll get to the bottom 5 GMs in the NFL as well.
So I have not seen this list. Can I guess some of these to see if we get the top 5?
You want to see if you can get the top 5?
Okay, yeah, let's see if I can get the top 5. Bradford, chime in if you'd like. If you have seen this list, though, don't cheat. I'm going to say Chiefs are up there.
Yep. Andy Reid / Brett Veach is number 1 on this list.
Okay. 49ers have to be up there.
They are number 2 on the list, John Lynch.
Okay, my Detroit Lions better be up there for what they've done these last couple of offseasons.
Lions are at 6. They did not make the top 5. I think it's because it's a very short stretch. He's done a great job, but it's only a couple of years.
Man, the drafting that he's done, though, has been
but the other teams that are in the top 5, I think you'll agree, have a longer track record.
So the Eagles have to be on here. Like the A.J. Brown put them in the top 5 no matter what.
Ding, ding. They're number 3. You've got your top 3. Chiefs at number 1, 49ers at 2, Eagles at 3.
All right, now this one's going to be tough beyond that. Ravens?
Oh, there we go. That's the music that I was waiting for. The Ravens are at number 5. So you're missing number 4. You've got the top 6 outside of number 4.
Well, let me look at some division. Is Buffalo?
No, Buffalo is not there. They're at number 7. So you're just really racking up the top 7.
I'm not going to say my Houston Texans because God only knows they're going to be there.
Too early.
Chargers are trash. Oh, Dallas.
Nope.
Cowboys.
Nope. They're at number 9.
Staying in the NFC, shot in the dark, Green Bay.
They're at number 8. You guys basically have the top 10 without naming the number 5 team.
Man, is this going to be...
I'm surprised you don't have this one.
Is this going to be some stupid... It's not the Bears.
No. I'll give you one more guess, and I'll tell you who it is. I'm legitimately surprised that you don't have them. They've been a consistently good team for 15 years.
Rams.
No.
Really?
No. Rams are at number 4. I thought you had already guessed them. My bad. You were missing 4 and 5. Had you said the Ravens?
I said the Ravens.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I was missing 4.
You were missing the Rams. Okay. So your top 5.
I guess I can't deny the Rams one as much as I hate it.
in the NFL right now. Tell me if you disagree with any of this, Alex, the way that they're ranked. Andy Reid / Brett Veach. Chiefs are at number 1. 49ers at 2. Eagles at 3 with Howie Roseman. Number 4, Les Snead and the Rams. And number 5, Eric DeCosta and the Baltimore Ravens. Would you move any of those around? Would you include somebody else in your top 5 general managers in the NFL?
I mean, I feel like I personally would put the Lions above the Ravens, but if we're going off of sustained success, I guess you have to put the Ravens because they're up there and they've been up there. But man, I look at what the Lions have done in the last 3 seasons. They've gone from the worst team in the NFL to a team that this season is a Super Bowl contender.
I guess it depends what you value more. Do you value the team that has consistently been good, didn't have to tank, and just sustained their success? Or the team that came literally from the bottom of the league and found a way to get at or near the top? I value more the consistency. I value a team that was able to find Lamar Jackson at the back end of the first round. And it feels like every single season, when you go into the NFL draft, I don't know who the Ravens are going to take, but I know that whoever the best player is that falls, that we're all like, how is that guy falling? That's the Raven. He's the one that ends up on the Ravens somehow. So they're the team to me that I would value more. I actually would have them higher on this list. I would have the Ravens ahead of the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
I think that the Rams, I would have docked a little bit. I would have them behind the Lions. I would probably go Ravens at 4, Eagles 3, 49ers 2, and Chiefs at number 1. And I think you can make a case, actually, that the Eagles should be 2 over the 49ers as well.
I think it's a good point of distinction there because especially if you're talking about the Rams and let's forget those picks to be kind, Snead, the way in which he has not applied as much finesse through the trade market necessarily over the last couple of years, the success for the Rams hasn't been there in the same way since that Super Bowl triumph. But then again, if you think about last season coming in, reloading with Puka to go along with Cooper Kupp, etc., it's an interesting point. But Alex, to your point as well, I think that you could certainly elevate the Lions beyond maybe not even just the Ravens, but the Rams too.
Yeah, the way that I view this is, and however you want to adjust it, the Lions should be a top 5 team in my opinion.
That's right.
Because when you go from worst to first, and I understand that you got those great draft picks, but how many times have we seen teams crap the bed with great draft picks? And the Lions have gone from selecting different types of players to work around Jared Goff and making Jared Goff look like a hero with that team. So I would give them much more credit than either the Ravens or the Rams.
All right, so the bottom 5 teams, and it's worth noting the new hires that came in this offseason, they're not a part of this ranking. So the Chargers, the Panthers, the Commanders, the Raiders, and the Patriots, they're not part of the rankings. There's only 27 teams that are a part of it. It's hard to rank somebody based upon what they have not yet done. So bottom five GMs in the NFL based upon where they're at. Do you want to try to? I'll give you three guesses for bottom 5 GMs.
Colts?
They are not in there. No. They're in the middle of the pack.
Broncos?
They are. At number 26 of the 27 teams that are ranked.
Now I'm warming up.
George Payton with the Broncos.
I'm warming up now. Giants?
The Giants are not in the bottom 5. They're very close. They're 23.
So one more guess for me, and I'm going to say...
I was wrong. They're actually the 5th worst.
Okay.
Miscount. God. I'll give you one more. You should get that.
I'll say the Cardinals.
They are 25th, so they're the 3rd worst. All right, so the worst GM in the NFL, according to NBC Sports, Trent Baalke of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I was going to say them, but then I'm like, well, they got Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, but they were gifted him.
Yeah,
they were gifted Trevor Lawrence, and then they screwed up the number 1 pick the next year. They could have had Aiden Hutchinson, who, actually had production in college, and instead they went with this projectable defensive end, Travon Walker, who ended up, he's fine. He's a good run defender. Like, I'm not going to boast about the fact that you're a good run defender when there's another dude up in Detroit that has completely altered the trajectory of their franchise. Screwed it up.
Yeah.
Trent Baalke screwed it up. Then this offseason, they screw up the wide receiver contracts. Calvin Ridley ends up going to a divisional rival. You should have had that done previously, and for whatever reason, they waited too long. They're waiting too long on contracts with Trevor. Like, the Jaguars are a mess. Yeah. Trent Baalke, worst GM in the NFL.
I can see that.
Behind him, George Payton, 2nd worst of the Broncos. Monty Ossenfort with the Cardinals. I disagree with this. I think the Cardinals have done a pretty good job. Now, it's very early in the process for them. It's only his 2nd year, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's done a pretty good job with some of the process stuff. We'll see if the results come.
I was going to say, I think you could turn it around this past draft.
100%. And we'll see where things go. I think he's done a pretty good job, though, given the cards that he was dealt. Rand Carthon is at 24. He's the Titans general manager. Can I be honest, Alex? Kind of like what they did this offseason. I think they're a really interesting team heading into 2024, but it all relies on Will Levis. If Will Levis is bad, they're going to suck.
Yep.
If he can be a solid to good quarterback in the NFL, and I'm not saying great, just like a caretaker of the offense, they've got some really good weapons now to be able to throw to, and the defense has been improved.
I like this offseason for him. I agree with that, especially because I feel like in their division they can have success. But the reason that I would agree with putting them on the list where they are is because they screwed this all up. They never would have had to be in this position if you wouldn't have traded away A.J. Brown, and you made that move because you were worried about what the future was going to look like.
He wasn't the one that did that, though.
I get it, but you still put yourself in this position. So it's tough. Honestly, he should be thrown out of this conversation because he hasn't been there long enough.
And then Joe Schoen with the Giants is at 23. I think Schoen with the Giants should be way lower. I think he should be the 2nd worst right now.
I agree.
I think he's been horrific. I do not think that the Giants have done a good job of building that team. Another team that's not in the bottom 5 general managers that I think should be is Terry Fontenot, the Falcons general manager. Dude, he's failed at every stop. Every single time that they've had an opportunity to take another playmaker, they've done that. Can we improve the defense a little bit, Terry? You got to play defense to win in this league, and he's not doing it. So I think he's been terrible. And then Joe Douglas with the Jets. They get all kinds of love for what they have done. Can we see a little success? Like a little, just this much success. He screwed up the quarterback position when he took a quarterback that can't play in the NFL. He's like, you're in my size, Alex, at number 3 overall. He's already on a new team. Yeah, you went out and got Aaron Rodgers. Can we get an offensive line for the guy that's 100 years old, maybe?
No.
He didn't do any of that last offseason. He has fixed his mistakes this year. They got to win. They got to win big this year, or he's getting fired at the end of the year. He should be bottom 5 as well.
He treats his wide receiver room like the Cardinals treat their pitching staff. Like, let's bring in all of the ARP dudes and see if they can have success for one more year. Well, I get
who's really running that team is Aaron Rodgers.
But you probably should have got Aaron Rodgers in that circumstance then, too.
Well, he gets credit for Garrett Wilson, and that's it. The cast-offs, not whatsoever.
And where would you have Andrew Berry with the Browns? I think he's one of the more interesting discussions because his biggest move that he's made is screwing up the quarterback position.
Right.
And giving him an all-time bad contract with Deshaun Watson being one of the worst deals that we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. I think that is how we're going to remember that. That has to weigh heavily. But he's been good at basically everything else.
Gonna say.
They've built up an amazing offensive line. They have a really good defense, pass rushers galore. Like, they have done a really good job with basically everything else that you can ask for from a general manager.
tips the scale significantly the other direction.
Yeah, I think he should probably be bottom 5 because of it. Like, just purely because of that
Especially
trade.
because Joe Flacco was the one that took you to your first playoff appearance, not Deshaun Watson.
All right, last thing here as we go through some NFL quick hitters on BK and Ferrario. Ask us anything on the other side. Alex, it was announced yesterday the Bears will be spotlighted in this year's preseason Hard Knocks. They will be the off-season team. We had previously talked about the in-season. This is going to be the preseason one where they're showing training camp and everything. I love it.
Smart.
It's the perfect pick. It's the only team that I was interested in watching this year on Hard Knocks. The NFL can choose from like 5 different teams. This year, the Bears were the obvious choice. Of the NFL season. Great decision by the league. So glad that this is the team. It's maybe the most anticipation I've had for Hard Knocks in 5, 7, 10 years, maybe since the Detroit Lions one, honestly.
I agree with you because that one would be priority number 1, especially for how significantly changing that team is with you got Keenan Allen there now and you've got the success of Caleb Williams. Can I give you the other team, though, that I felt like they should have done?
Sure.
Houston Texans. Especially with the Stephon Diggs trade, and you've got this team that just showed out of nowhere. D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud. Like, that's a team that I would have found really intriguing in the offseason.
The only teams that were eligible were Chicago, Denver, and New Orleans.
Oh, God, you picked the right one, NFL.
Yeah.
Jeez,
I'm glad that it's not Denver. Let's put it that way.
Why wouldn't you put Houston in that? Did they do it recently?
So there's like certain criteria that you have to meet. I'd go through it. There's like 5 different sets of criteria that you have to meet to be eligible for the show. One of them is you were bad.
Oh, wow. Sorry, Houston.
So the
You're
Texans
awesome.
were not one of the teams that were eligible.
Well,
I think they could do the in-season one, but not the...
Thank God they picked Chicago in that scenario then.
I think they'd be eligible again next season because it was all the way back in 2015 when Houston was featured.
I think it's like every 10 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. Ask Us Anything is next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
you've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers.
Presented by WindowWorldSt.Louis.com. Simply the best for less.
Let's get into Ask Us Anything. Very different segment than what we do normally during the 11:45 segment, which is questions and answers. This is Ask Us Anything, which is sports or otherwise. Anything you guys have for us, get them in on the Air Comfort Service text line right now at 314-399-9646. We do this each and every Friday on the show. You guys can ask them as well on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Let's start out with this. Alex, when it comes to naps, are you somebody who likes to take a 20 to 30-minute nap, or do you just sit down or lay down, take a nap, and wake up whenever?
Prior to kids, my naps would be when I took a nap, I would lay down and I would be out and wake up whenever. Post kids, I don't know what a nap is. I couldn't tell you the last time I took a nap.
Ditto.
Because the moment you think you can take a nap, it's, oh crap, I got to go get this done. Or, oh shoot, I got to go do this. And then by the time you get that done, you're like, oh, I could go cut the grass in an hour and then take a nap. Then the kids are up.
So my time to nap is right after our show. I have to make a decision very quickly. I go home, eat lunch, and then I have like 50 minutes typically between the end of me eating lunch and when I have to go pick up baby boy from daycare.
It's a power nap, baby.
So I get to choose, do I want a 30-minute nap here, or do I want to wash the dishes or do some laundry or go on a whatever, right? So I am very much, I used to be a lay down, I'll wake up when I wake up kind of guy. That may be an hour and a half. And now it's very much I get 20 to 30-minute power naps, and they are the best thing that could ever happen.
I should amend this because
it's rare, though. I do it like once or twice a week.
Our Blues engineer at Enterprise Center, Ryan Schulte, he just texted me. I do get my power naps in during Blues season. When I leave here, I go to the garage at Enterprise Center, and I eat my lunch, and then I'll take like a good 20-minute power nap in my car, and Schulte always walks by and knocks on my window to wake me up. It's a real jerk move. But
from the 636-314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. What is a sport that you guys could not be paid enough to play no matter what the price? I've got one for you, Alex. Either UFC or kickboxing. And the reason why is I can't handle those kicks to the shin. Can't do it. That would be the thing that would bother me the most.
It's not even the kicks to the shin in UFC. It's when they stomp on your bare feet.
Yeah, no, I'm out. Yeah, can't do it. There is no dollar figure that could get me to do that.
But if you
I'm a pansy, 100%.
If you paid me enough, I'll take a beating. No. If you paid me enough, I'll take a beating, especially for what some of those guys get. I'll tell you the one that I wouldn't do for any amount of money. Track and field. I will not run. You can't pay me enough to go run because I'll be vomiting afterwards.
So you're better with physical punishment than the
I'll take a beating endurance. For punishment, but yeah, the endurance side of it, I can't handle it.
Meanwhile, that's what I do for fun whenever I leave the show. All right, from the 314. Guys, I'm trying to get into the world of podcasting or sports radio as a career. Any tips on how to get into it? Just do it. Just do it. It sounds so simple, but that's the biggest thing. Get reps. Many of you probably still think I'm terrible. Think about how bad I was when I first started this. That is as bad as you can possibly be. That's what I was when I first started doing sports radio when I was in college. You try to find who you are. What can you bring to the table that others aren't?
Yeah.
For me, I'm the numbers guy, right? I'm the nerd, affectionately, as Josh Innes said earlier today.
Fair.
I like finding stuff like little musings of statistical evidence or whatever and finding a conversation that can be based upon that. So coming up here in 10 minutes or so, we'll talk about how each of the last 10 World Series winners had a top 5 finisher in the MVP voting or multiple top 10 finishers. How does that apply to the Cardinals now and in the future? That's the kind of stuff that I can find that I don't think a lot of people are doing on the air. And so I found that's my lane. Alex is the hockey guy. He freaking loves hockey. He always has. He found an in with the Blues, and that is what he can win with. So find what your angle is, get really good at it, and just start doing podcasting and put it out there for your 5 friends to listen to. It doesn't matter if anybody's listening to it. Get really good, and then eventually you'll find your way into what you want to do with it.
That's the one thing I would say, too, to piggyback off of that is do something, but send it to people to get criticism because nobody likes listening to themselves. Give it to other people and let them critique it so that you can build off of it. Because when I was an intern, and then when I started working as a board op at KMOX, I wanted to be on air. I wanted to do pre and post. So I would do mock pre and post games for Cardinals and for Blues in our studio at like 11 o'clock at night. I'd send it to our program director. I'd send it to Mike Claiborne, to Tom Ackerman. I would send it to about 15 different people and said, please be brutally honest with me. And I did that for about 3 years and just kept taking all of the critiques and criticisms so that I could build off of that.
And sometimes it's alliteration. That could be a pro or a con. I leave it up to you.
314-399.
Absolutely accurate, Bradford.
9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Again, find out who you are and be you. That's the biggest. Don't try to be something you're not. When I first started doing radio, we've all got our influencers, right? Like who did you listen to growing up? Why are you in this? It's probably because of that person. Most of us, when we started, just doing our best impersonation of whoever that person was.
Yeah.
And eventually, when you do this for 15 hours a week, you can't do that. You're going to get figured out. So find out who you are. Be that person unapologetically. That's going to have a lot of people not like you. They're going to tell you that you suck at this, and just keep going.
And don't have a tone. That'd be my other advice. Don't have a tone.
Also, be aware of where your shortfalls are, and that's
just don't have a tone, man. It's real easy.
Next one up. Could the Blues get Jacob Chikrin this offseason, Alex, without getting rid of Bennington, Thomas, or Parayko?
Absolutely. I think you could get him for Pavel Buchnevich. I think you could trade a Joel Hofer. I think you could trade like a Brandon Saad or something like that for him if they'd be willing to, accept the no trades. Ottawa wants players that can help them win now. They want veterans that can be in the top 6. They don't need defensemen. They've got a lot of them. I think they would prefer to move on from Thomas Chabot, but you have to be able to take on $8 million a year for the next 8 years, which the Blues would be able to if they can move on from one of their players. But Chikrin's a free agent after this year, and if you're Ottawa, I think you want to get whatever you can that helps you win now. And that, to me, is what the Blues have a lot of.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, I apologize for beating a dead horse here, but now that Nootbaar is on the IL, I don't understand how Karlsson is essentially taking precedent over bringing Jordan Walker back up to fill the outfield spot. Can you please explain this to me? I don't think it's actually about Dylan Karlsson at all.
I was going to say the same thing.
I think this is exclusively about where they believe Jordan Walker's at. If Jordan Walker had been hitting for power down in the minor leagues, I think Jordan Walker's up today. I think Jordan Walker would be the guy that ended up getting the opportunity to start in right field every day, and you just leave Alec Burleson a DH. I think this tells you where they believe that Jordan Walker's at.
Yeah.
That's all I think that they're saying with this.
I also think it's not Dylan Karlsson versus Jordan Walker. I think it's Alec Burleson versus Jordan Walker. I think they love Alec Burleson, and they're like, hey, the guy's hitting. Let's see what the defense looks like for an extended period of time while Jordan Walker still figures it out.
And take away the home runs. Just put that topic to the side. The fact that he has 8 extra base hits basically in an entire month with 16 strikeouts. The fact of the matter is that he's still not getting the ball in the air, lifting it with regularity to the effective
you just said the worst thing
line drives. Let me get to it. Line drives. That's what you have to have with consistency, because if he's not doing so at the AAA level, what reason does that give you to believe that it will happen with the parent club again?
Still just no home runs, man. 0 home runs in the 2024 calendar year. He had 20 last year between Memphis and St. Louis. I'm not telling you the guy's got to hit the ball in the air all the time. I get it. It's not what his swing is. It's not where his pitch recognition is at yet. That's fine. He's got to hit for more power to be a successful major leaguer. You can't succeed like this right now. And I think when people hear the lift thing, they immediately go to, oh, you're trying to change his swing. I think it's actually less about his swing and more about pitch recognition and pitch selection. What can you swing at that is going to get you those results that Bradford was talking about? What can you swing at that is going to result in line drives? Well, it's probably not going to be that down and away slider. You can't do any damage with that pitch. But can you make sure that you're swinging at the right things and swinging with authority when you swing at that? I think that's the biggest thing. I'm very confident, actually. That's the biggest thing they're working with him on right now down in AAA. And when he shows he can do that, that's when we're going to see him again in the big league level. And that's not going to be affected by Lars Nootbaar's ability, Burleson. It's just going to be, when is Jordan Walker ready? When Jordan Walker's ready, he'll be back up at the big league level. He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. Coming up next, Do the Cardinals have anyone capable of being a legitimate MVP candidate, both for this year and for the foreseeable future? I'll explain why that matters coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Up-to-date info and breaking sports news first. All on the 101 ESPN app, in your App Store or Google Play. The only sports source in St. Louis that matters. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
When I look at the lineup of the Cardinals, if I have my best pitcher on the mound, I can get you out. All those guys have holes right now. And so it's hard to play that way. And then when I look at the starting pitching, I love the bookends. I love Sonny Gray. I love Ryan Helsley, like everybody else. But everything in the middle, I don't cover those kind of players in the playoffs.
Alex, I was looking at this yesterday, as Jim Bowden on the show earlier this week, talking about how the Cardinals lineup right now does not strike fear, impose fear in opposing teams. Some of that's true, honestly. Like, Wilson Contreras was your best hitter this year, 950 OPS. Second best on your team right now is Masyn Winn. I think he's been excellent so far this year. He's got an OPS of 798. Really good, below 800. You look at the best teams in Major League Baseball, they've all, for the most part, got somebody that's above that in their lineup that really just absolutely terrifies you when they come up to the plate. When the Cardinals are going up against the Phillies this weekend, when Bryce Harper steps to the plate, you're going to be scared. Every time he comes to the plate, especially against a right-handed pitcher, you're going to be scared of what that guy can do. That's what an MVP candidate can do to you. And the Cardinals right now don't have that in their lineup. They could if one of Goldie or Arenado get back on track, but they don't right now. That was the expectation. It hasn't happened so far this year. Alex, I wanted to look at this because as I was thinking about the conversation we had yesterday, where I got the tone problem with you guys, about Jordan Walker and the Cardinals' middle of the order, and how you and T-Bone were saying, like, I'm not afraid of that middle of the order if you don't have the Goldie Arenado guys in the middle in the future. A Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, Wilson Contreras trio batting 3, 4, 5 potentially could be really good. Are those guys going to be MVP candidates? Because if not, you're probably not winning a World Series. That's what I learned last night as I looked this up. So the last World Series winner that it had a player finish outside of the top 10 in MVP voting. So they did not have a top 10 MVP candidate on the roster for that season. Bradford, did you see the notes? Have you seen this yet? Who it was?
Enlighten me.
Sorry, buddy. I don't read the notes either.
The 1996 Yankees. Every single World Series winner in the last 27 years had a player finish in the top 10 of the MVP voting. The reason why I find this interesting, because, of course, yeah, good teams have good players. That makes sense. The last team to win a World Series without anybody in the top 5, so like superstar caliber talents, was the 2021 Braves. Makes sense. They had 2 guys in the top 10, though. So if you're looking for teams that won the World Series, didn't have either a top 5 MVP candidate or multiple guys, 2 guys at least, in the top 10, the only teams that have done that in the last 15 years, Alex, 2013, the Red Sox did it. 2010, Giants. It's just teams don't win the World Series without either a guy that had a real shot to win the MVP, finished in the top 5 in the voting, or multiple guys that were so damn good they finished in the top 10 in the MVP voting. When you look at the Cardinals, both for this season and beyond, do they have players that are capable of that? Do they have guys that can really, realistically finish in the top 10 of MVP voting? Because if they don't, everything for the foreseeable future, we talk about the pitching, and it's a real question mark. It's a frustration that is legitimate for Cardinals fans. Everything, though, is going to once again go back to, how do you find that guy?
Yep.
Because you can't win a World Series, clearly, without it.
Yeah. No, I don't think you have that in your lineup now or in the future. I think the closest thing you have to it is Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. But Nolan Gorman's going to have to be hitting 45 bombs in a season to be even in this conversation. Jordan Walker, we've talked all about. He's got the makings of an MVP. But if we're going to see these faults that he's got right now as a 21-year-old, which we should remind everybody, then I don't see how that is the MVP status. I go back to 2021, and I know T-Bone sent this last night. I said this when we had our purge. You screwed up not capitalizing in 2021. And when I look at Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Tyler O'Neill, those 3 that season mimicked an MVP. Yep. And I look at this roster right now, and I don't see anybody in the future profiling like Paul Goldschmidt with 31 home runs, 99 RBIs, and an OPS plus of 141, or Nolan Arenado with 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, a 119 OPS plus, or Tyler O'Neill at a 148 OPS plus. That was the makings of what you're talking about, and the Cardinals screwed that up. So you're going to have to either draft and develop one of these guys, or you're going to have to go sign one in free agency, because you beyond the year that is Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, which I don't foresee that happening this season, you don't have an MVP caliber player on this roster. You got guys who can win Gold Gloves. You got a lot of guys who could be all-stars, but you're going to have to get at least, to me, 2 MVP caliber players if you want to have success.
BK, let me throw this one at you. And Alex, to your point, especially when you bring up Nolan Gorman. Now, that's somebody who in the years to come, regardless of how it pans out for Jordan Walker, for Masyn Winn, etc., he has to be your constant, the one reliable in the power department. I think it would be fair to draw a parallel between Gorman in St. Louis to Schwarber in Philadelphia. Fair enough, right? On the surface, you would say, as far as what you must get in power contributions. But the difference here is that right now, given the advanced ages of Goldschmidt and Arenado, Gorman has to be so much more for you to be truly competitive in St. Louis, I believe, than what Schwarber is as more of a complementary part in Philadelphia. And this is the reason why. You talk about top 10 potential candidates for MVP. Kyle Schwarber, you know every single season you're going to have the potential to get 40-plus bombs. The trade-off, a 200 average, maybe, and well over 120 strikeouts. Now, would you guess as to how high, the highest, that Kyle Schwarber has finished in MVP voting at any point in his career?
I looked this up last night. So, yeah, he's never finished in the top 15.
No, never.
Not once.
Never.
And that's what I found to be really interesting about it is, there's only so much value you can have in that profile of a player. That guy needs to be your 3rd best hitter at best.
Exactly.
And you can win with that guy as your 3rd best hitter at the highest possible levels. But you look back at those Cubs teams, obviously he was excellent. He was a big part of their success, especially in the postseason. But it was Bryant and Rizzo that were their two best hitters. You look now at what they have in Philadelphia, he's not one of their two best hitters. That's Trey Turner and Bryce Harper. He's the third piece of the puzzle for them offensively. You look at what the Cardinals are going to be in the future, and Alex, I think this gets back to, again, what you and T-Bone were saying yesterday on the show. If Gorman is your second best, if it is Walker, then Gorman, you haven't built a good enough lineup.
Yep.
You have a lineup that couldn't be good but not great, and you better have excellent pitching to be able to make up for that, or you better have other ways that you're able to win to dominate in the postseason. So I bring all of this up because I think it goes back to a reminder of why Jordan Walker is so important, why his development is the number one thing for this team for the future. If that guy doesn't become an MVP candidate for the Cardinals, then everything that is laid out for them changes. The direction of the franchise is altered because they've basically put all their chips in the middle with Jordan Walker being the centerpiece of the franchise for the next decade. And that's a lot of pressure for one player that is 22 years old to have on his shoulders. But that's where we're at, man. He's the guy that they're betting on because he's the one player that has that kind of potential. People bring up the Masyn Winn thing, and can he be that player? Maybe, but it would take so much from him. Like I looked at the 2015 Royals as an example of this, Alex. Lorenzo Cain was third in MVP voting that year for the Royals. He hit above 300 with 16 home runs that year. That's the kind of season you would need to get with elite defense, like zero downgrade from what we're seeing right now in order for him to be an MVP candidate. Can he do it? Possible. It's possible, but it would just require still even more development on the power side of things for Masyn Winn to get there.
And this is why I really feel like you're going to have to draft and develop it because, like, I know there's probably people listening right now hearing us talk like this and say, well, go out there and get Pete Alonso this offseason. I mean, Pete Alonso is going to be 30 years old, and I'd be very concerned that Pete Alonso is going to fall into the Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado category where you're going to get a couple years of it, and you're not going to capitalize on it. And especially Pete Alonso, other than those couple seasons, I mean, we're talking about a guy who profiles an awful lot like Nolan Gorman, where you need to get an all-around player to be that MVP.
You need your next Goldie.
Yep.
You need your next Goldie.
That's why 2021 pisses me off so much. That was your year to capitalize. You had everything.
All right. Have you seen this lineup yet?
No. Lineup game.
We're not going to play the lineup game. We're going to leave that for the fast lane. If you want to play it with them, go ahead and turn down your...
You sound angry. Does that mean Brandon Crawford's in the lineup?
Oh.
Bleep off. He's not in the lineup. He's in the lineup. This is amazing. He's in the lineup against the Phillies.
I know this is bad radio because I'm just silent here.
The first game against the Phillies, and your best hitter, you said we need to give him a day off.
I don't...
That is such trash.
I really don't know what to say. The only possible explanation, and we better hear this pregame.
Oh, man.
Masyn Winn's back locked up on him. That has to be the explanation. It is the only thing that could possibly make sense.
No, I don't think they're going to say that. I think they're going to look at it as, well, we like to give our guys 48 hours off, and he played that last game of Cincinnati. We needed the series win. We could still get the series win if he doesn't play in game one. And that is a losing mindset. Your best players need to play. You need to keep winning series. And there's no reason other than a injury that Masyn Winn should not be in the lineup.
So his last off day was the 19th. He has played in every other game since May 13th. So every game since May 13th, outside of one, you have seen Masyn Winn in there.
Still 2 days, BK.
That
Off
means
yesterday.
That Brandon Crawford has played in one game since May 12th. So they've done what we've asked for the most part of playing Masyn Winn every day. I can't tell you how much I hate this. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I hate this. I understand. I think Bradford's probably right. Bradford's right in that they're trying to get him 2 days off.
You don't do that in the first game against the Phillies.
I know that this is all based upon sports science, and they're saying, hey, guys, like, the rest days are important. That's okay. This is a guy that had a back issue, and if he got hurt because of overuse, we'd all be screaming from the mountaintops about how the Cardinals overused him and they should have been more careful with their best young player. Okay. It's the Phillies. It's Aaron Nola. You ain't beating this team without your best lineup on the field today. You're just not. You're just not. And you're not putting your best foot forward coming off of an off day, one of the very few. And this is another thing that they'll say, Alex. They've got 2 off days, I believe it is, in the month of June. So they're about to enter one of the toughest stretches in terms of just games played of their season. That's about to hit them. I just hate giving him this off day. I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Can I be honest, though? If Masyn Winn were to get injured because of overuse, I wouldn't be blaming the Cardinals. I'd look at it as, okay, so it's a guy that just can't stay healthy as of right now. He'll grow and get better. I'm not going to blame the Cardinals for using your best player. If he can't stay healthy, then fine. You're going to go through that. Players go through injuries. What I will blame the Cardinals on is if you lose a series because you don't pounce on momentum. This is why I also believed you should have put Nolan Arenado in the lineup against the Cincinnati Reds, because you need to pounce on momentum. I get that you're on a stretch right now of winning a lot of different series, but man, one bad series can turn this into a snowball. And we know this Cardinals team is not good at stopping a snowball going down a mountain. They're the type of people that just shovel more snow onto it as it goes. And to me, when you start a series, this is when you set the tone for a series against the Phillies. And you're basically saying, our best player, we want to make sure he's healthy for 162.
Now, you want him tomorrow because you want him going out there against the lefty. Like, you absolutely need him in that game because you're going to have a lot of left-handed bats that get the day off tomorrow. It makes sense going against a left-handed pitcher. And then you got Taijuan Walker on Sunday. That's probably a better matchup for a guy, for everybody. I mean, going up against Taijuan Walker, you've got a better chance to have success than going up against Aaron Nola. For me personally, if you had to get him a day off in this series, I would have gotten him the day off on Sunday, because that's the game you're most likely to win with your ancillary pieces. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really hard to string together hits against Aaron Nola. My guy that gives me the best chance to do so is Masyn Winn. I understand what they're going to tell you. They're probably going to say, we wanted the 2 days off for Masyn Winn for him to be able to truly rest his back coming off of the tweak that he had a few weeks ago. And they're going to say this gives him the best chance to stay healthy in the month of June when we only have 2 more off days the rest of the month. All fair retorts. I don't like giving him this day off. Starting the series against Philadelphia, being able to, as Alex said, set the tone against the best team you've played all year long other than the Dodgers, and going up against one of the best pitchers that you will see all year long. You do not see in this series their best starter in Zach Wheeler, but you do see their number 2 in Aaron Nola. This is the game where I wanted Masyn Winn in the lineup. This is the number 1 game where
I would have sat Masyn Winn in that last game against Cincinnati. And I know you kept him in because Palante's a ground ball guy. Crawford's defense would have been just fine for you.
Not have been.
Fine. I think it would have been just
Crawford's
fine.
one of the worst defenders in Major League Baseball.
I think you would have survived, but your offense would have carried you in that game.
This is the other thing. Like, Michaelis is on the mound today. This is a guy that does not get swing and miss. Lance Lynn on Sunday, fly ball pitcher, swing and miss stuff. That's what I can do with Brandon Crawford in the lineup. Not tonight. Not tonight with Miles Michaelis on the mound when I need a positive defense. I vehemently disagree with this decision.
So here's
I think Ollie's been a great manager for the most part, especially in the last 3 weeks this year. I think this is a miss.
This question for you. Lars Nootbaar goes down. Say what you will about Masyn Winn. I accept the logic. I accept the rationale. If he needs another day for long-term purposes for the month of June, so be it. Why is Jose Fermin not in this lineup tonight?
A fair question.
Why is he not?
Totally.
It makes zero sense. This is exactly the same thing that we saw.
Because Brandon Crawford's a veteran.
Around.
Brandon Crawford's a veteran, and we need a veteran presence.
Great point.
And you know what?
Jose Fermin should be in the lineup tonight if you're going to give Masyn Winn the day off.
Thank you. And you take Brandon Crawford's sterling 3 for 17 batting log against Aaron Nola in his career from 10 years ago, and you throw it out the window. It means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Ollie has said that. Ollie doesn't use that stuff. He looks at it and says, like, it's really hard to be able to take such a small sample size and make anything of it. I'm guessing what they would say to your suggestion of getting him in the lineup is that he's probably going to start tomorrow because it's a righty bat against a lefty starter. And I don't think it's a problem necessarily to start him 2 days in a row. Jose Fermin has been hitting well down in AAA. Get him in the lineup the next 2 days if you want Masyn Winn off. putting Brandon Crawford out there in this lineup, that ain't it, man.
Yeah, this is why it's so hard to root for the Cardinals, because of stuff like this. I hate this. You're building off of something, and I get that it's a 4-game series, and one game doesn't matter if you want to win 3 out of 4. I want this team to have confidence, and you lose confidence when you take a Masyn Winn out of the lineup.
I want to hear from the listeners. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll talk about this on the other side. What are your thoughts on them giving these scheduled days off to guys, especially this one with Masyn Winn? I think the Arenado one was a little bit different, to me at least. Masyn Winn has been your best player so far this season, and he's not starting in Game 1 against the best team that you faced so far this season since the opening series of the year. We'll hear from you guys. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app, and the Air Comfort Service text line is 314-399-9646 here on 101 ESPN.
We want your insight and honest opinions on the world of sports. Use the mic drop feature in the 101 ESPN app. Say it and send it to us. Now in the App Store or Google Play.
When you ask people here what's the one thing that makes Diamonds Direct their favorite jeweler, for some, it's the unbeatable pricing we get through our direct importer. No middleman connections. The foundation of our business since day one. For others, it's the uncompromising quality. From hand-selected diamonds to handcrafted designer rings. Only the best of the best. Some people put selection at the top of their list, as Diamonds Direct offers up to 30 times the options you expect from a typical jewelry retailer. For some, it's our luxurious showroom with diamond experts who genuinely care about your experience and happiness, and who are empowered to do whatever it takes for you. Others rave about Diamonds Direct's unmatched warranties and guarantees that include free service for life and an extraordinary 110% diamond upgrade promise. But you know the most often answer we get when asking what makes Diamonds Direct stand out? It's not one thing, it's everything. Diamonds Direct. Value, luxury, choices, and confidence. Get directions, hours, and more at diamondsdirect.com. Official partner of the St. Louis Blues.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
With Alex and Bradford on BK. So the news today is that Masyn Winn, the actual news is that Loris Newbar's hitting the IL. Jose Fermin been recalled to the Cardinals. He's up in Philadelphia with the team right now. But the lineup is out. Spend the next 10 seconds turning down your radio if you want to play the game later on with the fast lane. But one piece of it, Masyn Winn's not in it. He's not in your lineup tonight going up against Aaron Nola and the Philadelphia Phillies. Most likely, scheduled day off. That's my assumption. They like getting these 48-hour stretches to get their players a day off, get them off their feet for a couple of days. I suppose I get that. That makes some sense to me, Alex, just theoretically speaking. In practice, though, it sucks. It really sucks going into a series like this against one of the best opponents that you'll play this year, one of the last opportunities, really, to be able to match yourself up and find out how you stack up against a true threat in the National League. Masyn Winn's been your best player this year, and he's not going to be in the lineup in Game 1 to set the tone against Aaron Nola. Righties have had some success against him this year, and I think you need a guy like Masyn Winn in your lineup to win tonight. So I hate it. I don't like that he's getting this game off. But even if I was going to concede that argument and say, okay, makes sense, it's smart to get him a day off coming off of the off day, 48 hours, before this big stretch of them playing a ton of games, only 2 more days off the rest of the month of June. You shouldn't be going to Brandon Crawford here, man. He can't see this lineup anymore. I get it. If you just want him on the roster as like a backup plan when Jose Fermin's not here, cool. That's fine. Seems like a good dude. Everything that I've heard about him in the clubhouse and from people that are around the team on a more consistent basis than we are, Brandon Crawford's a really good guy to have around the team. Totally fine. No problem having him as the 26th man on the roster. But he can't start. Certainly not regularly. So far this year, he's been one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball. He's 3 for 31. Again, small sample size, but 3 for 31 so far this year, and that's not unlucky. He's been a bad hitter so far. And on the over the past 2 seasons, since the start of last year, Alex, he's batting 185 with a slugging percentage below 300. That is 50% below league average offensively. If that's not enough for you, he also rates as one of the worst defensive shortstops in the majors so far this year. And he is literally the slowest player in the league so far this year. He brings no value on the field for you. Off the field, I can listen to all of the arguments about the veteran leadership and how he's been able to help out Masyn Winn. Like, that's fine for me. I will listen to your arguments there. But when you have Jose Fermin on the roster today, it is for a situation just like this where you want him to go out there and play. He's just a better player at this point in his career than Brandon Crawford. So starting point is I don't like Masyn Winn being out of the lineup. Second point is if he's going to be out of the lineup, I want Jose Fermin taking his slot, and they went with option C of Brandon Crawford.
This feels a lot like Taylor Motter last year, where like he kept finding his way into the lineup, and we're like, what are we doing? Now, I missed this article. Somebody just texted it in on an Air Comfort Service text line. Apparently it was on Fansided, but it was a quote from the Belleville News-Democrat.
I was about to say it was from Jeff Jones.
Yeah, this is the quote from Brandon Crawford when he was asked if he made the right choice signing in St. Louis via free agency. Quote, I think it would be hard to answer that fully right now, but I mean, seeing them out here having fun and shagging batting practice with me out in center field, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that makes me struggle through the first couple months worth it. Brandon Crawford hasn't played in a month. April 30th was the last game that he saw the field. I think that was as a starter. If this is Ollie putting him in because, you know, he wants good vibes for Brandon Crawford and he's got to get a taste of the field, that's a terrible decision. That's a terrible decision for a guy that when Tommy Edman is going to come off of the injured list, is probably going to be DFA'd. He's not going to be on this roster. And if somebody else is DFA'd, that's going to be even more wild. But, like, it just is really odd that yesterday, that quote from Jeff Jones on the Belleville News-Democrat, and then today, Masyn Winn gets the day off because if it is the 48 hours thing, which makes sense, John Denton tweeted that out too, it doesn't look really good that Crawford said this, and then he's in the lineup the next day against the Philadelphia Phillies.
And around Major League Baseball, for whom, for what team would Brandon Crawford play more regularly? It would not happen. Now, going back to what you said, BK, about the speed element or lack thereof with Brandon Crawford. That's why it makes even less sense to not have Fermin in there tonight. This club has won 10 of its past 12 and has finally found, at least for the moment, that balance between being able to drive the baseball and utilizing the speed on the base paths to a greater degree. Okay, fine. Put Fermin out there, bring him up, plug him in the number 8 hole. He at least replicates some of what Masyn Winn brings to your team. Nobody's going to confuse him for Masyn Winn, but when you're talking about that spot in the order, hit him number 8. He has the speed element. He has more range. He has 10 swipes at Memphis this season. It makes even less sense.
He doesn't have range defensively. He's not the same player that he was out there defensively as he once was. He brings zero value on the bases, and he very rarely gets to the bases. I don't get it. I really don't understand it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, man. I would I would just put Masyn Winn into the lineup today, and on Sunday, I would have given him the day off and had Jose Fermin start that game. Back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, Jose Fermin gets the start for you. Probably one of those days at second base, and then the next day he can start for you at shortstop. I don't get it. It does not make any sense to me, but I do want to hear from you guys. The text line is 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, my computer has completely frozen, so I do not have the ability to get to these, but cool. Bradford, do we have any mic drops that have come in so far on this?
No mic drops yet, but the text messages are streaming in.
Cool. If you can read a couple of those that are interesting to you, that would be great, because, again, I can't do anything with my computer.
Yeah, from the 314, this is why I don't like Ali. No killer instinct with this team in this lineup. Crawford, that is. This is why Ali is a joke.
I get it. I remember last year a lot of the frustration from Cardinals fans was that they didn't have the consistency. They didn't have a lineup that was consistent. And I viewed that as more of the position. Like, they didn't have guys that just played the same position every day, right? And that frustrated a lot of people. And I get that to a degree. I didn't think it was the thing that ultimately led to them struggling last year, but I understand it. And this year they've been more consistent with that. They've got guys that are playing one position for the most part, and they've done pretty well with it. Defensively, they've I think seen some positive results because of it. This is the other part of that. And mostly, I actually think this is smart. I think it's really smart to get guys like Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt days off. They're in their mid to late 30s. They're going to need rest. They need to get off of their feet. So that, I think, makes a lot of sense. I don't love it when you're getting your 22-year-old starting shortstop who's been one of the best players in Major League Baseball a day off, coming off of an off day. I mean, they certainly have more evidence. They have more information that would explain why they're doing this than I do. But as a bumbling idiot that just talks about the team on radio, I don't like this.
Yeah. This is the part for me from the 618. Just when you start getting excited about the Cardinals, they have to go and put Crawford and Carpenter in the lineup. It's hard to defend this move going into a series like this. I think that's where I fall victim into this circumstance, because you're reeling right now. And again, I understand the scenario of, hey, we're going to have the healthy lineups for games 2, 3, and 4, and we can still win the series. But to me, that's not a winning mindset. The winning mindset is, hey, right now, we need to pile up as many wins as possible. We're sitting at 500, and we've got an opportunity to pounce on this Philadelphia Phillies team with win in an 18-game hitting streak, with the defense that has been really, really good, and you've got a combined group effort that's feeling about as confident as you can ask. And you know how you kill that vibe? By looking at Masyn Winn and being like, hey, we need to give you 48 hours. And this feels an awful like the Cardinals telling him, we can't have you in the lineup, than Masyn Winn being like, I don't want to play today. I need the day off. That's how you suck confidence away from a group.
A couple more texts from the 314. Guys, I'm fine with it. They seem to have a plan with Winn, and it's working so far. The one hype prospect that we have not screwed up yet, this team isn't winning the World Series anyway, so don't bleep with Masyn Winn. Fair. I mean, it is hard to argue with the results. They've handled him mostly with kid gloves all season long, and so far, he's been great. So if that is your retort, it's hard for me to say, well, but what if he played every day? Like, would it be even better? This is probably the best case scenario that you could get performance-wise out of Masyn Winn. So I do understand that to a degree. From the 636, Tony La Russa would never sit a guy like Masyn Winn when you're playing against the top team in the National League. He absolutely would have. But it would have been on Sunday.
Yeah, it would have been on the getaway day.
Tony La Russa used to do this all the time, and fans, I guess, just forget about it. But his getaway day lineups were infamous here in St. Louis, because people would be like, scheduled loss. You got all of the also-rans that are in the lineup whenever Tony La Russa was here on Sunday day games especially. So that I disagree with. He would have absolutely played one of the backup shortstops in this series, but it would have been for a getaway day instead of in the first game of the series.
Yeah, that's the one I agree with. And frankly, I think that's what you should have done. You had the opportunity to sit him against Cincinnati in that last game of the series. Now, I understand why you played him, because you needed to win, but you have a chance to play him for 3 or 4 and then sit him on Sunday. It's the same situation you did with Nolan Arenado in that spot. We didn't like it, but you chose to sit Nolan Arenado in the getaway game because you were thinking we could still win this series. This Sunday would be the one that makes the most sense, but it just feels like it's putting it's putting a negative feel for a team going into such a match. If this was a series against Houston or a series against Colorado or Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be having as much of an issue about it.
I do think that's where I find it to be really interesting. I'm in the same boat as you. If the Cardinals, if you just flip the series, if they were starting a series this weekend against Colorado tonight instead of against Philadelphia, I would actually have less of an issue with this.
It'd be fine. Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know if that's right or wrong, honestly. I really don't know if my perspective, if it's fair or otherwise. But I do feel differently going into this game against Aaron Nola and Philadelphia because I feel differently about the decision because of what the opposition is tonight.
Yeah.
I don't like it in part mostly because of who you're going up
right.
against.
Well, and to the texter's point of saying it's not a World Series team, I don't really care about it. Take care of the kid first. I agree. I'm on the same wavelength as this is not a World Series team. But you got an opportunity to at least chase the NL Central title. You got an opportunity to prove to your team that, hey, this was not a fluke. And I know there's a lot of Cardinals doubters that don't believe in this team still. Jim Bowden being one of them. You know how you sway their decision? You know how you sway the decision of your team to say, hey, we should invest in this rather than just be skeptical and continue to stand pat. You go out there and you take 3 or 4 or potentially sweep the Philadelphia Phillies. That's how you do it.
All right, let's go to the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. How do you feel about the fact that the Cardinals decided to sit Masyn Winn tonight and instead started Brandon Crawford? We did get a text real quick before we play this from Luke asking, hey, guys, is Jose Fermin even in Philadelphia? He might not be there yet. He was not in Memphis yesterday. They had the results of Lars Nootbaar's MRI yesterday. They announced that he was heading to the IL today, but they knew yesterday that he was going to be heading to the IL. I would be very surprised if Fermin wasn't in Philadelphia yesterday. So, yes, he is absolutely there with the team today. I can exclusively report that without actually doing any reporting because he was not in Memphis yesterday. All right, let's get to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Luke.
All right, boys. So, I put the Cardinal shirt on as we're going out to lunch to celebrate my wife's last day before summer vacation, and then the lineup comes across and we learn that Brandon Crawford's in the lineup. I don't know about you guys, but when I was 22, played a ton of sports, probably 4 or 5 days a week, and generally came out okay. Also, what's frustrating is this is the first time in forever they have a chance to go above 500, and yet we're not rolling out our best lineup. So I don't know. I'm going to go have some frosty ones and mill this one over. Talk to you later, boys.
I can exclusively report that I am not in the same athletic shape as Masyn Winn, and I don't think that's anybody on YouTube can see that. But I played 4 rounds of golf in 3 days over a weekend in humidity of Mississippi.
Did you forget where you were?
Yeah, I did for a minute.
Did you pull a Gene Keating?
There's a lot of alcohol involved with that one. But I can say that after playing that much golf in that little time, I felt good. And I'm 33 years old. I got to imagine Masyn Winn, after playing as long as he's been playing, but with 24 hours of not doing anything, his back's going to be okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think there's something to the idea that these off days are good for the players. A lot of it can be junk science, and I get that. Like the NBA, there's some new research that's coming out that's like, was this actually good for them when they got the load management stuff? Was this actually good, or did it just teach their bodies to not play as often? Like, did we just teach athletes that they don't need to be out there on a regular basis? So there's some kind of conflicting reports on that. I do think for baseball players, I know it seems super easy to go out there and play the game instead of the game on a day in, day out basis. I think there's value in off days. I just disagree with them when they had this one for Masyn Winn. So that's kind of where we're at. All right, I want to hear from more from you guys. There's some mic drops that are coming in right now. The 101 ESPN app is where you go to find that. How do you feel about the Cardinals not having Masyn Winn in the lineup today against the Phillies to start out this 3-game set in Philadelphia? Going up against one of the best teams in Major League Baseball, one of the best pitchers in the sport, and they don't have their best player in the lineup for this Friday game. We'll talk about that next year from you guys here on 101 ESPN.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Onder Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cardinals fly east. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Brunt with your Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at Citizens Bank Park, St. Louis kicks off a 3-game set versus the top team in Major League Baseball. 39-18 Philadelphia sends Aaron Nola up against Ali Marmol's club, which counters with Miles Michaelis. The Cards themselves have won 7 of their last 8. Elsewhere, division-leading Milwaukee will host AL Central, where Chicago. Pittsburgh draws Toronto. Thursday hoops, Dallas romps past Minnesota. 124-103 out west. The Mavs now must wait until next week to oppose Jason Tatum's Celtics NBA Finals style. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Yeah, I'm actually fine benching Winn. I think they have a plan in place for him. This is a first somewhat hyped prospect the Cardinals have had in a while that they haven't screwed up, frankly. So let's keep doing what you're doing with Winn. This team isn't winning the World Series anyway. So I don't know why we're all up in arms about them benching him for one game against the Phillies. Let's not screw this kid up. So, I don't know. They clearly have a plan. Seems to be working. I don't see why you would steer off it at this point.
One thing about that, as we're talking about Masyn Winn, who's not in the lineup tonight, it looks like Brandon Crawford getting the start. One thing that I'm not going to sit here and say that the Cardinals haven't screwed up Masyn Winn because they've been giving him these scheduled days off. I don't think Masyn Winn has fallen victim to what some of these other top prospects have done, BK, because I just think Masyn Winn's a gamer. And I think this is Masyn Winn being a guy who has a extremely high confidence level. He's got a ability to get past things when they go sour for him, like we saw in the beginning of the season. I don't think we're seeing Masyn Winn turn into this pillar for a team because the Cardinals have scheduled his days off. I think we've seen this because Masyn Winn is just a gamer, and they struck gold on a draft pick.
I think so, too. It's worth noting, so I don't remember if Masyn Winn had any IL stints last year or not. I don't believe that he did, but I could be wrong on that. He only played 105 games last year for Memphis, and Memphis finished the season last year with 148 games played. So he did get some regular days off last season, consistently. And in the minor leagues in AAA, if I'm not mistaken, with the way that they schedule the season now, it's one day off a week already. Like, they play 6 games a week, 1 day off, and typically those are all against the same team. So they just, flip things around week by week. So if you wanted to continue that, my guess is he probably got 1 day off per week last year, and they had the full actual day off. So this might be the Cardinals just saying, hey, this is a guy that played in 125 games last year overall with what he was able. Oh, shoot, I forgot. He came up to the big leagues.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was one of, I think somebody texted in and said he had a short one before he came up between Memphis and the Cardinals, but.
Yeah, no, I'm just a big dummy.
105
he played
games.
142 games last year.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute, he played 37 games for the Cardinals.
I don't know, man.
Stop reasoning.
I'm searching for explanations. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm seeking out answers as to why they would feel the need to get him this many off days. I don't understand it. I'm throwing my hands up in the air just like you guys. I'm trying like hell to find, there's got to be a reason. There's got to be. I don't believe that they're just dumb.
Well, how about this one? Somebody from the 636 brought up another tinfoil theory, and they said Ollie's being proactive, and he's playing the best Cardinals lineup on Sunday while the Phillies will play their getaway lineup.
I mean, maybe.
I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say I think the getaway lineup for the Phillies is going to be better than the Cardinals' best lineup.
Maybe.
That's why I would like to pounce early on a team.
Yeah, I just don't know, man. Somebody else brought up the fact that they're going to be on Sunday Night Baseball on Sunday, and maybe that plays into this. I don't think the Cardinals really make decisions based upon whether they're on Sunday Night Baseball
Here's
or not.
a wild idea. How about you play them in all 3 and then give them the day off going into the Astros game and give them that game off?
Like that.
There's an idea. You get him in all 3 of the games against the Phillies, which this might surprise you, BK, but it's important to get one of your best hitters in the lineup against a really good team.
I'm totally with you, man. You're not going to hear me disagree with that. So last year, man, this is crazy. So he was called up. He played 105 games in the minor league season, right? That's what I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
How many games do you think that the Memphis Redbirds had played when he was called up? So he played in 105. How many games do you think the team had played? So
I'll say 110.
107.
Oh, my God.
You got 2 off games.
What are we doing?
You got 2 off games last year.
I think I am fully engulfed in the tinfoil theory that is, this is about making sure Brandon Crawford's in the right mindset and not about Masyn Winn. They don't want to hurt Brandon Crawford's ego at this time, and they got to make sure he feels a part of the team still because his leadership is important.
So you have to worry about the mindset of the World Series champion 2 times, I believe.
No.
Brandon Crawford and Masyn Winn, that's not a concern?
He's going to be DFA'd when Tommy Edman comes off the IL. I don't care about his mindset.
I know, but that to our collective point here, that's why it makes even less sense.
Yeah.
You're not worried about Masyn Winn because he has that swagger. He has that vibe.
I feel like this is the difference between teams that see themselves as World Series contenders and difference between teams that are like, I can make the playoffs, is this. I have to protect all of my players.
So just one final thing on this, and then we're going to hear from Aaron. Brandon Crawford, 3 for 31 this season, 7th worst OPS in Major League Baseball since the start of last year, out of the 312 hitters that qualify. So he's 305 out of 312.
That's good.
Currently ranks as the slowest non-catcher or designated hitter in all of Major League Baseball. So other than that, though,
They put him in the right spot in the batting order, though, behind Matt Carpenter and in front of Michael Ciani, one of the faster players. That's smart.
Right. Aaron is going to get the final word on the decision to sit Masyn Winn today.
Crawford has always been a dirtbag to me. Crawford looks like the guy that sells drugs to kids. He looks like the guy that pushed down your grandma just to get her Social Security check. So he's a dirtbag. He's worthless in my eyes. The only reason why he got 2 rings, or 2 or 3 rings, is because of Posey and the pitching they had. So, Demo strikes again. They're in control of this. That's the way it is.
Didn't he win
he was
didn't he win a World Series MVP?
3-time All-Star, multi-time Gold Glover, was a guy that consistently hit like 280 and had an OPS that was above average. And oh, by the way, was one of the best defensive shortstops in the game. Like,
hey, Ron, you need to calm down.
I want to make sure we distance ourselves from basically everything that was said in that.
But how did he treat the elderly citizens in the Bay Area?
To just open up that one and say he's a dirtbag is just wild.
Wow. I wasn't prepared for that.
I wasn't either.
That's not what I was anticipating from the final mic drop.
Is an angry individual on a Friday.
All right, coming up in 10 minutes, Alex, no shock to anybody, falling in love with another big-time playoff performer. He'll explain why coming up in just a little bit. The Juncture is next here on 101 ESPN.
The Stanley Cup playoffs continue on ESPN. Tomorrow night, Panthers and Rangers Game 6. Pre-game at 6:30, puck drop at 7. The NHL plays on 101 ESPN. back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trashed wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
Alex, have your kids gotten to the age yet where they're starting to charge stuff to your credit card while they're playing on video games or watching videos on YouTube or anything like that?
So nothing that extreme, but my daughter, I don't think she knows she's doing it, but when she gets our Fire Stick remote, she'll just start clicking buttons to find Disney Plus, and next thing you know, I'll be subscribed to like HBO Max or something like that. And then you just go to Amazon. Good job by Amazon to have one of the options of basically my kid bought this by accident and they refund you your money. Amazon's great.
Bradford, have you had any of these issues? I feel like at the Bruns household, I'm just going to make an assumption here.
Sure.
I feel like there's a lot of parental controls that are on that to make sure that you avoid any of those.
Bradford lets it fly. Bradford lets it fly.
Well, let's see. You've got 2 in high school now. So what do you think, BK?
Cinemax is available for everybody.
Oh, hey, chill, man.
It is
What?
not.
It's got great movies up until 11 o'clock at night.
Right, that's right.
And then it's Skinemax.
Have you had any issues with this?
No.
Video games?
Not as of
charges
yet.
Being made? Okay.
Fingers crossed.
They're high school. So I think you're past it.
The Ferry family, Ferri, went on Good Morning America, Alex, this week and said that their children, 8-year-old son, unintentionally, of course, racked up $4,000 in credit card charges while playing video games. $4,000.
How? Was this a phone video game or like a video console game?
This video, all it says in this
it's got to be a phone.
And the story that I'm reading is that it was on video games. I can't give you the full details of it.
It's got to be a phone because like video games, I don't think you can buy like internal purchases.
I think you can. Like if you expand the map and all that
maybe
stuff,
like Grand Theft Auto and things like that.
I don't know how you get to $4,000 in spending.
You just keep expanding, man. You just keep expanding.
I'm not a big video gamer at this point in my life. I don't have the time for it. I like running. That's my thing. So like my extra time is spent running and looking up nerdy numbers for the radio show. But for people that are super into gaming, I would imagine there's ways to, if you wanted to, spend a good amount of money clearly on those games. They spent months trying to get this money back. Months.
Did they get it back?
Eventually, they got it refunded,
Wow.
but they went on GMA and they were like, hey, listen, this is a cautionary tale for parents. Please put the parental controls on so that way your kids can't rack up the money, the bills, the way that
especially video games, because like I don't play often, but I do play occasionally. And like if I want to purchase something, all I got to do is like click yes, because you put your card info on it and you click yes and it just purchases it. Unlike other things to where like when you do purchase on my television, you have to click yes and then you have to put the security code on the card in and then you have to click yes again. And then like one other time you have to click yes. So that can get monotonous for kids. But yeah, video games, especially on phones, like my nieces, they'll just start like purchasing stuff on my mom's phone.
Dude, somebody said that their kid spent $1,000 on Fortnite skins when he was 5 years old.
Oh, yeah. So this wasn't a video game, but my cousin, and I hope he's listening because we make fun of him about this all the time. When he was like 13 years old, his mom and dad got so pissed off at him. They got the cable bill. This was like Charter when pay-per-view was still a thing. They got the cable bill 1 month and they looked at it and it was $9,000 and they were like, what did he purchase? It was all adult films.
1 month?
1 month, and it was $9,000 of adult films.
God,
he just kept purchasing them and he knew what he was doing because he was 12 years old. We still give him crap for that to this day. $9,000. And think of
Did they get the money back?
I don't think they got the money back.
I mean, I don't know how you can, right? Like
you're purchasing a film, so that was like pay-per-view at the time.
Oh,
and
my
think of that because those films on pay-per-view, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just guesstimating.
Qualifier.
They're only like $8 or $9. So you are just purchasing more and more and more films.
It sounds like Fortnite is the thing that gets people. We got another one that said $500 on Fortnite. Another one that said my friend spent $5,000 on Fortnite.
How?
Years later, too. That's been a thing for a while.
Man.
Still as popular as ever, I guess.
Don't you miss the days of like Nintendo 64 when you couldn't purchase anything? You just plug it in and you play it.
Yeah, because there was no online access,
There was
right?
no online.
There's no way to be able to access any of this stuff. I think the tough part now is, like, especially if you're playing stuff on on your TV, a lot of your information just is in there. It's just always available. It's access free for anybody. Woo. And for the DirecTV, like pay-per-view stuff, hey, my credit card info is with DirecTV. They know how to charge it. It's ready to go for you. There's not a way for me to block that necessarily. Oh, boy. All right.
Man. So, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to know for future reference. If Luca gets into Fortnite, make sure there are parental controls that do not allow him to buy something without our permission first.
We don't let the girls touch our phones because of that reason. Because when they get them, or when we do, it's Disney Plus and you lock the screen. Because when they do, it's just you start pressing buttons.
Somebody on the text line said, my friend is, I'll save the name. He's spending $200 a month on Fortnite. He's 32.
Like willingly spending that much money?
Hey, if you
man,
have
if it
money
makes
to
you
spend
happy,
on it, whatever you're into, right? Like, some people are really into shoes, other people are really into traveling, some people want to go out for dinner once a week. Like, spend whatever you want to.
I spend that on
feel
golf.
like that's better than a child that goes in and spends your money on something.
$200 a week is different than dropping $5,000 in one purchase.
That's a lot of expansion packs.
Like $1,000 a month that they're spending on Fortnite.
That game must be legit.
Good for them. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, did the Cardinals make a mistake in letting Jack Flaherty walk this offseason? Something that was brought to my attention yesterday. I certainly have a take on that. We'll get into that coming up at 1:15. But next, you're never going to believe this, but Alex is watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he fell in love with a guy that's having a tremendous postseason so far. He'll tell you why he fits on the Blues next year on 101 ESPN.
Catch the Balloon Party with Tim McKernan and Action Jackson. Weekdays from 10 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The fastest hour of sports radio is driven by Munganast and Burkhardt Alton Toyota. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
All right, so this time of the year, I always know it's like clockwork. You can set your clock to it. Alex Ferrario is going to fall in love with somebody that he's watching in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Amen to that.
There's no doubt about it. He's going to watch it, and it's always going to be a similar type of player. Somebody that's super physical, somebody that's scoring goals, somebody that goes to the front of the net. If they can do those things, Alex is going to love you.
All right, let me tell you why Leon Draisaitl is going to be a part of the Blues next season.
So, Alex, who's the latest member of your circle of love that takes place during the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Feeling some Elton John right now if you guys want to play it. No, the guy is somebody I brought up on the show before. It's Sam Bennett with the Florida Panthers. The more I watch this guy play, which, by the way, 11 games played in the playoffs. He's been injured for a couple of them. He's got 5 goals and 9 points in 11 games. Last year for Florida, that got all the way to the Stanley Cup final, 15 points in 20 games, and he racked up 60 penalty minutes. I watched this 60 penalty minutes in the playoffs. I know. I watched this guy play, and I know I'm the one that sits here and says, you got to go out there and get a defenseman. But I also think the best thing for this Blues team is to get a forward who plays with a pissed-off attitude that is a proven performer in the playoffs that fits somewhat into the core of your players. Now, he's not 25 years old, but I think this guy resembles a lot like what Alexander Steen was when the Blues were kind of ready to compete. Now, Steiner didn't play the same way that Sam Bennett plays, but I watch him. He's the perfect person that can play center. Right now, he's a centerman with Matthew Tkachuk and Evan Rodriguez. He can play center, but when Dvorsky's ready to play and ready to go, you switch him over to the wing. And I think a guy like Sam Bennett would be perfect for guys like Jake Neighbors, for Dvorsky. When Snuggerud joins the Blues, this is the guy that brings that never back down mindset to a Blues team that I believe truly has to find that identity to be a playoff team.
So I think Sam Bennett would be an excellent addition for the Blues. I think he'd be fantastic.
I know what your next question is, and I've researched it.
I'm not totally sure why he would be available. He's $4 million next year. He's in his prime. He's going to be 28 years old. He's playing 17 minutes a night for a team that is consistently right now contending for a Stanley Cup.
Can I tell you why?
I'm Florida. Why in the bleep am I giving you Sam Bennett when I want him on my team and I'm good right now?
Because, and this is the question that I posed to you, at what point do you as a team that's contending say, hey, we need to try and transition our group into a team that can continue to transition? And they've got a kid right now who's 22 years old, who's playing third-line minutes for them, who's also basically a point-per-game player for the Florida Panthers, and his name's Anton Liddell. He's playing on the third line for them. He's a restricted free agent this upcoming season, and the one thing about Florida is, yeah, they are in a really good position in terms of their salary cap, but Sam Reinhart is going to have to get paid. They right now have a total of 5 forwards under contract next season. So they've got to do a lot in terms of salary cap, and they only got 3 defensemen under contract for next season. So I look at their roster. They don't have to move on from Sam Bennett. Frankly, if I'm them, I want to keep Sam Bennett. But at what point do you as a team say, hey, it might be time to see what we could get for Sam Bennett now, so that we can re-sign some of our younger players to put them in a position to where they can succeed, and we bring in another crop of players that can develop into that role that we need? I don't think they do it, but if they have to, if you look at it and they would much rather have Sam Reinhart, who's going to probably get somewhere between $10 and $11 million, if you want him, if you want to get another defenseman who could be in your top 4, do you have to suck it up and trade away a guy like Sam Bennett?
Maybe. I also just don't, what's the value for a guy like Sam Bennett? Because you look at prior to him going to Florida, he was consistently a 30, 25-point producer with Calgary. It gets to Florida, he's on a good team now. He's 40 to 50 points is on a consistent basis. He's more of a goal scorer than a distributor, but he's pretty good. He's just a good all-around player, and he's got the physicality that you're talking about. He can play. He's a prototypical second-line center.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's never going to be your number 1 guy, but he can be a second-line center on a great team, probably as he ages, a third-line center for
Yeah.
you. There's nothing wrong with having him as a significant piece of your lineup. But I don't think he's somebody that's going to price himself out necessarily. I don't think he's getting $7 million a season. I wouldn't pay that for a guy that is, at best, in a really good situation, getting you to 40 to 50 points. So what do you, A, pay for that player, and B, trade for that player?
Well, and that's the hard part, because I don't know what they would be wanting for that player, because unfortunately for them, or fortunately for them, they're not desperate for anything. They've got their defensemen locked up. Their goaltending is set. You've got your top players. They need depth. And if you're trading a guy like Sam Bennett away, you'd probably want to get cheaper and younger with players that fit into your core in terms of depth pieces. I don't know if you have what they would want. Do they want a Pavel Buchnevich? Probably not, because he's going to price himself out of their ability to re-sign him. Would you have to go to that next tier? Would you have to go to Jake Neighbors or an Alexei Toropchenko? And then I'm not talking about that. This is something that if they're in a cap crunch and they know they got to move on from somebody.
So they're in a really interesting spot with the cap, by the way. They have $19 million, and they currently have 14 players on their roster.
They're a lot like Vegas.
Add 9 players to their roster for next year.
They're a lot like Vegas in that sense. And so, I think they're going to be in a cap crunch. Does just draft picks benefit them? Because they've drafted and developed players really well. Could you pry that player away for 2 second-round draft picks to add to your roster? And
I think so, but maybe. I don't know.
And when you ask what the price tag on a player like that is, say you were to re-up him, the guy that when we're describing what he does, he's never really more than a 50-point player, but guess what he was? He was always a playoff performer. Look at what Justin Williams was in his National Hockey League career. He never commanded a whole lot of money. In fact, you're looking at this, $3.8 million, $3.2 million, $4.5 million, but that was back in 2015 and 16. And if the cap's going up and Sam Reinhart's going to get paid $11 million, and if you're Sam Bennett, who's a point-per-game player in the playoffs, are you going to ask for 6? Are you going to ask for 6.5? Probably. And guess what? Would you rather pay 6.5 for this guy who has nastiness to his game, who performs in the playoffs and fills more of a void that you're looking for? Would you rather pay 8.5 for Pavel Buchnevich, who's going to be 31 years old when he's a UFA?
It's totally fair, and the answer is probably I would rather pay for Sam Bennett. I don't know that I'm going to go that high.
Probably not.
The salary,
he's 28 though when he'd be a UFA rather than Buch, who's 31.
So one of the things that I would look at, the Daily Faceoff, they put out their projections for free agents this offseason, right? One of those free agents is Chandler Stevenson. Now, it's not a one-for-one direct comparison. They're not the exact same player by any stretch. But Chandler Stevenson's been a consistent 50 to 60-point producer over the last few years for Vegas, a really good team, and he's been a playoff performer for them. A really good player, much better on the face-off dot. He's probably more of a natural centerman than Sam Bennett is, honestly, long-term. Their projection for him at 30 years old, so a bit older, is a 5-year deal at $5.7 million per season. Mm-hmm. So maybe for Sam Bennett, it's 6 years, 5.5.
Yeah. And I think that plays more into the core of what you're talking about than what a Buch would. Now, I don't think Sam Bennett's a power play guy. I don't think he's a penalty kill guy. I'd have to look at it and see kind of what he is. But I'm thinking of the projection. I'm looking at trajectory of this team.
He is on the PK.
Is he? I'm looking at trajectory of this team. And let's say Dvorsky's here next year. I would rather put a Sam Bennett in my second-line center role to play with a Dvorsky, and when Dvorsky's ready for center, that's the guy that's playing on his line, than having a Braden Shen or a Pavel Buchnevich. Those guys, I feel like, don't mesh more into what the trajectory looks like, because I'm thinking 3 years from now, when somebody texted in and asked, does his playing style fade away as he gets older? I don't think so, because I think when you play with that attitude and that type of style, that benefits a team no matter what. And I really believe, look at what a guy like Matt Kessel did for this team in the short time that he played. I think when you get guys that play with that attitude, it draws others into the fight. And that's what I really think this team's lacking.
Yeah, I think he's exactly what they're missing. By the way, over on The Athletic, one other projection for a contract for what they're expecting out of Chandler Stevenson. I'm missing this. I'm not seeing what their current projection is.
For Stevenson?
Yeah, for Chandler Stevenson. This previous contract.
Are you on Faceoff or The Athletic?
For The Athletic.
Yeah, I was going to say Daily Faceoff had him at about $5 million per year.
Yeah, I wanted to see what The Athletic had for him, but it's not showing what their projection is. All right, apologies on that.
Stevenson's free.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll take it.
I think Bennett is exactly what they're missing in terms of the physicality. I want somebody that can be that. I think we've gone back and forth. What is the biggest need for this offseason? I think the biggest need for the Blues long term is to fix their defensive core. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest need for them this offseason is actually number 2 center. And I don't know if they're going to do that. I think they're going to say, well, we can have Shin be next to Dalibor Dvorsky, and Dalibor Dvorsky will eventually be our number 2 center. I would prefer this route. Mm-hmm. I would prefer them to go out and have, up the middle, the ability to play with Robert Thomas, Sam Bennett, Braden Shin as my top 3 centers. Because now the wingers that I have with them, I can get a true evaluation of what they are.
Right.
I can see what Dalibor Dvorsky looks like right now next to a guy that I know can contend. I can see what Zach Bolduc is next to Braden Shin, where I know that guy's going to put him in positions to succeed. I can see Jake Neighbors with Robert Thomas again. I don't know that you can do that if your third line center next year is Kevin Hayes. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting the best out of whoever is on that line when Kevin Hayes is my third line center. It's just the truth.
Think of the young guys that are playing with him. Bolduc, Snuggerud, Neighbors, like you mentioned. Dean, Dvorsky. Like these are all, Stenberg when he's going to be here. These are guys that you want to put around players that can play at that pace. And, you know, my question to you would be like, what if you could do both? What if you could get your centerman and your defenseman? Because this is the creativity that I think Doug Armstrong is capable of, and it's what we criticize the Cardinals about. Because if you are able to acquire a Sam Bennett from a team for something that's not hindering you because that team's in a cap crunch, and maybe it's just draft picks, maybe it's lower level players on your team. Heck, maybe it's a Brandon Saad and they go 1 for 1 to where it's a guy that's locked up for 2 more years. But then you use Pavel Buchnevich where you just filled the void of him with a Sam Bennett, and you go get your defenseman with Buch.
My biggest question for the Panthers this offseason, and this is something that if you're a Blues fan that's with Alex and you want Sam Bennett, you want to see the following 2 things happen. 1, you want them to re-sign Sam Reinhart. That's the starting point. Because if they re-sign Sam Reinhart, it really limits their ability to have a Sam Bennett for next year and for the future. 2, you want them to re-sign Brandon Montour. Because if they do those 2 things, they're now in such a cap crunch for the next year that they probably have to go young at their second line center, and that is when Sam Bennett becomes a guy that can be moved off from, and now they're going to be looking to you. They're going to be using it as a salary dump, essentially. They get rid of this $4 million salary. My guess is they'd probably do the same thing if they can with Spencer Knight, where it's like, hey, we've got a really great number 1 goalie. We're not going to pay $4.5 million anymore for our backup. Let's find a way to shed some of these salaries from our books.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Florida Panthers, the other thing too is watch out what Anton Lundell gets from them, because Luosterainen, who's 25 years old, he's making $3 million and he's 25, and he's basically kind of playing to the same pace as Lundell is. If you're Lundell, you're talking about anything less than $3 million. And on top of that, Sam Bennett and Carter Verhaeghe are in the same position. RFAs after this season, or UFAs after this season, both around the same age.
Got to be back.
And Verhaeghe, if I'm them, I'm looking at that saying he plays more into what we need, and that's wingers that can score rather than Sam Bennett.
Alex Ferrario's latest heartthrob from the Stanley Cup playoffs. His name is Sam Bennett. He plays for the Florida Panthers. He's very physical. You
Great
should watch him
mustache, too.
Over the next couple of weeks, and you can see him in the Stanley Cup Finals potentially if they get there. Panthers versus Rangers Game 6 is right here on 101 ESPN tomorrow night. We have Stars versus Oilers tonight. Pregame for that one starting at 7 right here in your home of the NHL playoffs, 101 ESPN. All right, coming up next, did they make a mistake by letting Jack Flaherty walk? And should they welcome a return if that's the way that things go this offseason? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
From the opening drive, the balloon party, BK and Ferrario, to the fast lane and more. If you missed anything on 101 ESPN today, get caught up with all the shows and 101 podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Driven by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Randy Carricker here with Jim Olive. The
Attention 101 listeners.
You can join Kyle Gibson, Tommy Edmond, Paul Goldschmidt, Ryan Helsley, Nolan Arenado, Steven Matz, and Miles Michaelis
In supporting some amazing causes during Big League Impact's All-Win campaign.
Consider making a donation in exchange for fun prizes and giveaways from Big League Impact. See the full list of foundations and programs being supported by this year's campaign and find all the details on how you can help support this year's All-Win drive.
With Big League Impact, now at 101ESPN.com.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN.
Highest percentage of breaking balls to the edge or bottom of the zone. Jack Flaherty second. Zach Gallen, who tweaked his hammy and walked off the mound, he might be someone they might think about sticking around.
That's true, too. That's also
he could be a true ace for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Not that far off. I like what A.J. Hinch is doing.
Oh, boy, that was MLB Network earlier today on MLB Central talking about Jack Flaherty, who's been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball so far this year. He took a no-hitter into the seventh inning last night, Alex, and what was another gem of a performance. He now leads all of Major League Baseball, of course he does, in strikeouts so far this season. He has 90 of them in 67 innings pitched thus
Jack
far.
Flaherty, a future ace. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah, except this time it feels real. It feels sustainable. He's been legitimately one of the best pitchers so far this year in baseball. And it's very simple as to why. His slider's back. He figured out his slider again. In 2019, when Jack was one of the best pitchers, guys, opposing hitters, they hit 184 in terms of the batting average against. We don't need to get too nerdy with the numbers here. 184 batting average against his slider in 2019. Do you know what that number was last year, Alex?
370.
340.
Well,
pretty close. Almost doubled. People were hitting it consistently and hitting it really hard to the tune of a 560 slugging percentage. That's not going to work. That's his best pitch. That's his whiff, swing and miss pitch. It wasn't working for him over the last couple of years. Well, this year, it's back. Opposing hitters are batting just .215 against his slider, and they're swinging and missing 43% of the time. Last year, that was at 25%. So his slider's back, and now suddenly he looks amazing. Alex, he signed a $14 million contract this past offseason with the Detroit Tigers. The question that I was asked yesterday on Twitter, and I'm curious for your response on this. Would you be open to a reunion? If Jack ends up, I don't know what's going to happen with Detroit this year. They're basically the equivalent of you. They're at 500, but they're in fourth place in their division right now. The AL Central is a tougher division to win than the Central Division is in the National League. If Jack became available and was one of the trade assets this year at the deadline, is that a guy that you'd be looking to acquire?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because I don't think this is, it's not that I don't think, this is not the Jack Flaherty you are getting if you trade for him. Jack Flaherty on field, to me, is pitching well with Detroit because there's zero expectations there. He's not expected to go out there and be on a team that could contend for the World Series. Heck, it's not even a team expected to make the playoffs. He went there as a opportunity to rejuvenate his career, and he's taking it and he's running with it. And I have to applaud Jack Flaherty for that. He's figured something out, which is good for him. But if I look at what it's been for Jack Flaherty since 2019, there's been a lot of pressure on him to be the ace of the Cardinals, and he was never that. Then he was acquired by Baltimore last year at the deadline because they needed him to come in and be a stud for their rotation. High expectations for a team that thought they could get to the World Series. What did he do? He stunk. I don't think this is the Jack Flaherty that you were going to receive. And then you got to bring, which I will, the off-field side of it. We saw a lot of that here in St. Louis, of the frustration built up with this team. He was throwing his teammates under the bus last year in Wilson Contreras. I think there's a reason the Cardinals are having success this year, because they got rid of some of those guys that just weren't meshing well with their group of players in that clubhouse. So, no, you could offer him up on a platter to me, and I would say thank you, but Jack Flaherty, keep going on and having success elsewhere.
And BK, make no mistake about it, it wasn't just one prickly incident in the clubhouse last season either. I do want to point out, why do we think that Flaherty is going so much deeper into games this season? You mentioned, of course, you cited the slider. Yes, it is back, but he is walking guys at a lesser rate than he ever has before.
It's because of the slider's back.
Well, yes, absolutely.
People are swinging and missing at it instead of just letting it go out of the zone. Because the slider's not a pitch that he throws in the zone very often.
Yeah, it's sharp, but we haven't seen that consistency. Even with that pitch, I would argue, with the exception of the 2021 season. So is this something that he can really be able to carry over for a sustained period of time? Because right now we're seeing him pitch markedly better than he ever has since he was a member of the Cardinals, since he was that true undisputed number one ace for a season plus. But if you're telling me the rest of the season, hey, try to project and figure out whether he's only going to be averaging one walk per start, I don't know if I'm taking that bait.
Yeah, I'm not. I asked the question because it was asked of me, and my answer to the question yesterday was, no, I'm not interested. I don't think they made a mistake in trading him last year and then not pursuing him during the offseason. I don't think they did. I wouldn't have bet on it. I think it was smart for Detroit to, because if you're another team that didn't have the history with Jack Flaherty, 1 year, $14 million, when I've got other guys that I can trust in my rotation ahead of him, yeah, I'll go ahead and make that bet. If I'm in a place where I'm looking for upside, Jack was the perfect candidate to look for that upside from. But here in St. Louis, where he was here for 6 years, and you got a year and a half, maybe 2 years of really good performances out of Jack, I can't trust it. I can't. It's the on-field stuff. It's everything. I think it was time for everybody to go their separate ways. I think it was good for Jack Flaherty to get out of St. Louis, honestly. I think he needed a mental reset. I think he needed, Alex, to your point, to go to a place where he wasn't considered to be the next ace. Just come in, be an upside pitcher that can come into the season as our number 3 starter. And if you pitch better than that, great. But the expectation is you're going to be a mid-rotation starter for us. That, yeah, when you have a mid-rotation starter, there's going to be some really good ones and some really bad ones that are expected out of you. And he's been excellent so far this year for the Tigers. They've got the best version of him. You know what I'm not going to trust, though? That next year you're going to get the same results. Because of health, he has not been a starter that's consistently been healthy in his career. And because of performance, when he has been healthy, he hasn't necessarily always been this version of himself. So I would proceed with caution. I would treat this the way that I think a lot of teams treated Carlos Rodon in the past. Rodon, you wanted him when he signed the deal with the Giants, or it was like that 1 year deal with the opt-out afterwards. That's the deal you want. That's the deal you want with Jack Flaherty. I don't want to be the team that signs him to the 3 or 5 year deal that he's probably going to get this offseason for $100 million after pitching really good baseball this year for the Detroit Tigers. So I'm not interested in him in the future. At the deadline, I'd consider it.
That's the worst time to bring him in.
At the deadline, if he's still pitching this way and the Tigers are out of it, because I don't know how good the Tigers are. They've got really good pitching, but that breaks, we know. If he becomes available at the deadline, I'd think about it.
Yeah, I would not.
It would depend on what my options are, but that would be the one caveat I would have here. The rest of this season, you're not buying it for a crazy high price. that would be the one way that I would consider going out there and trading for Jack Flaherty. But the offseason, going out and signing him, no, sir. I think they made the right choice to let him walk this year. I think they will make the right choice in not pursuing him again in the offseason on a multi-year contract.
Hey, acquire him just in time for Wilson to return as catcher. That makes sense.
Terrible idea. Hey, we're a team that believes you can win for the playoffs. We'll bring back Jack Flaherty, who literally threw our catcher under the bus, backed the truck up onto him, and then said, "Let's go forward." Whoop, whoop.
It's going to play out exactly like the scene in Step Brothers when Brennan and Dale encounter each other for the first time. Hey,
Nighthawk,
what's up?
No, it's the scene where he's trying to bury him in the backyard. What are you doing? I'm burying you.
Stop it.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind. But next, let's play game of One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go, kind of like Jack Flaherty had to go. You're at 101 ESPN.
Coverage of 101 ESPN is presented by Under Law Injury Lawyers. GetJim.com. ESPN is everywhere. Wherever you go, we go. The 101 ESPN app in your App Store or Google Play. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards try to climb over 500 in Philly. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. St. Louis carries a 27-27 record entering tonight's series opener against NL East leading Philadelphia. First pitch arrives at 5:40 with Aaron Nola starting for the host squad. Miles Michaelis, meanwhile, pursues win number 4. His crew has captured 9 of its past 11 games, but Masyn Winn sits here. Brandon Crawford, man short. Hockey, Florida now sits one victory shy of capturing another Eastern Conference final trophy. Yesterday's 3-2 dub versus New York sets up a potential clincher tomorrow. You can hear that contest live on 101 ESPN shortly after 7 p.m. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go here on BK and Ferrario. You can always get those in over on the YouTube chat as well. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. That is the chat that they affectionately call themselves The Graveyard. All right, Alex, let's start with this. From the 314, grilled, baked, fried, or smoked. Cooking edition. Grilled, baked, fried, or smoked. Which one's gotta go?
Fried, because that is I'm going off of me cooking it. That is the messiest and the most annoying side of all of those. Grilled, baked, those are easy to handle. Fried is just a disaster.
Mine is smoked.
You don't like smoked?
I like it fine.
It takes a while.
I would prefer the other 3. So I would say smoked would be my last on.
I think
last
smoked
priority.
would be number.
Stuff that is smoked really well is obviously fantastic, but I eat it the least amount. So I
think smoked would be number 2 on my power rankings of that.
Everything has to go if I'm manning the food.
Look at you.
If we have to pick just one, I'm with you, BK. Smoked, it doesn't do it for me in quite the same way as grilled. Give me the grill now every time.
How do you cook your food if all of them have to go?
You haven't been to the Bruns residence, yes.
You boil everything, don't you?
It's bad. I
he's
mean,
a
you're talking
guy,
about somebody who subsisted on
TV
chicken
dinner?
nuggets and microwave. Gosh, yes.
I like my 3-year-old daughter. Dino nuggets and mac and cheese. Hey, I don't blame you.
A lean cuisine mixed with some Dino nuggets.
Look, man, from the ages of 6 to 12 years old, I lived off of Salisbury steaks and those kid cuisine meals.
Love to see it. All right, one's got to go Jello flavors edition. I'm not sure if you put Jello in front of me if I could actually name which flavor is which.
I actually don't like Jello, so
a strawberry, cherry, blue raspberry, or lemon.
Oh,
is there a lemon Jello?
I would imagine.
I don't think I've ever had lemon Jello.
I don't know. The fact that you have to turn your head up again about that kind of excludes it from the conversation already for me.
Lemon's kind of out. I don't think there's really not much other than lemonade that's good lemon flavor.
Oh, really? I love a lemon pastry.
Oh, yeah, I'm out on that.
That's a go-to for me. Lemon poppy seed.
Once in a while.
Of course. It's a great combination, man.
Lemon poppy seed, eh?
We live out in St. Charles. The Sucrose is our bakery of choice that we use out there. Shout out to them. They do fantastic work. They've got this lemon poppy seed cake. Dude, it's
trash.
Chef's kiss. So
trash.
Good. Lemon would be the one that's got to go there. I've never had it.
Love lemon poppy seed. Get lemon out of here. It's disgusting.
I like it in pastries. I'm not so sure on the Jello side of things.
I like it with alcohol. That's when lemon's good.
One's got to go pizza topping edition.
Oh, here we go.
Pepperoni, sausage, ham, or bacon. I don't like bacon on pizza. Hot take.
You're crazy. But you got to do the right bacon on pizza. I don't like bacon crumble on pizza. The bacon strips on pizza. But they have to be cooked correctly.
I mean, I'm out on all of this because I don't really eat meat anymore.
Yeah,
but
true.
Bacon would be the one that's got to go for me.
He's not a meat guy.
When I ate meat, pepperoni, jalapeno, and pineapple on a pizza.
Oh, God.
You can do a lot worse than that. That's a good combination.
Ham is the one that has to go. Ham is strictly for one thing. Holiday meals and breakfast. It's not for my pizza.
My wife, not yours truly, let's put that out there, constructed some terrific BLTs last night. But when it comes to pizza, I don't want bacon on there. No, it's reserved solely for breakfast. Solely.
What are you talking
can appreciate
about?
that.
Bacon and bacon carbonara pasta? You put bacon on BLTs, which is a meal you have in the evening? What are you doing, man? Try some bacon on your pizza. You'll love it.
All right, one's got
to go. BK, because you need mushrooms.
Yeah, see, you got it. We had mushrooms this week. Lion's mane is so good, dude.
Do you think you guys eat mushrooms in your house?
No, we eat a lot of chickpeas in our house.
Oh,
a lot of mushrooms.
Katie, because she's pregnant and she's got the gestational diabetes, she has to eat chickpea cookies. I ate one thinking they were normal cookies, and I almost vomited.
See, we don't go that far. Like, I'm not full vegan.
Believe me, she doesn't want to either.
Just veg-curious for the most part. All right, one's got to go Cardinals edition. Kittredge, JoJo, Helsley, or Sonny Gray. So you got the 3 back-end relievers or your number 1 starter. Kittredge, JoJo, Helsley, or Sonny Gray. Which one's got to go?
I'd get rid of Kittredge because I think you can survive without him. can't survive without Helsley. You can't survive without a lefty who I think I saw with his fastball or was his slider. I think players are hitting like .29 against that pitch, which is just insanity, and you need your lead stopper. So I'd get rid of Kittredge.
Difficult one because of the southpaw factor. Alex, I'm with you on that front. Romero has been nothing short of sensational. Kittredge has been for the better part of the season, but due to the fact that he is setting up from the right side, he's been a bit more vulnerable over the last couple of weeks. In the here and now, I have to begrudgingly say Kittredge.
Lost the
JoJo.
trade. What?
JoJo. You've got other lefty relievers.
Oh, yeah. You're back in John King now, aren't we?
And then with
John
Steven
King,
Matz.
Matthew Liberatore, eventually Steven Matz.
Get the hell out of here.
By the way, something that will go under the radar heading into the series. I know Ollie, everybody's mad at him today, us included.
Understandably so.
About the decision to sit Masyn Winn in the first game of this series. One thing that I do really like that he did, he kept JoJo Romero off of the mound in that series against Cincinnati. He now had the off day yesterday as well. Going up against a team like Philadelphia where they have so many left-handed bats that can hurt you, I like the fact that they will have going into the series JoJo Romero rested, John King and Matthew Liberatore all to use in those lefty stretches in this series against Philadelphia. So that's something worth keeping an eye on is how they deploy those guys in the middle innings.
If only they had their best hitter in the lineup for the first game.
Yeah, well, there's that too. All right, one's got to go. Alcohol edition. Whiskey, vodka, tequila, or rum?
Tequila.
Oh, really?
Yeah, tequila is like a specific type of drink. Like I feel like I could drink whiskey, rum, and vodka at any times. Tequila, it feels like it has to be a summer type of drink, and it has to be a mixed drink.
Nah, man, if I'm with a group of friends, tequila is the go-to.
You like to get wild, don't you? Huh?
You've seen me before.
Just take tequila, take your pants off.
Whoa!
Let's have a good time.
I didn't say that, but I do enjoy tequila. I very much, I think tequila is a great social drink.
I think tequila is a drink that makes people do a lot of bad things.
That's why I enjoy it, man. You just never know where that's going to take you.
Amen, brother.
Thank goodness you didn't bring wine into the equation. Sunset
there he is.
white.
Dino nuggets, kid cuisine, and wine at the Bruns household.
Right.
I love
Tequila.
it.
What's your go-to wine?
Oh, like a little farmhouse white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alex, do you have a go-to?
No, man.
Alex says, whatever the bag is.
Just put it in front of me and I'll drink it.
The red bag is my preference, personally.
Just put it in front of me and I'll put the pinky out.
I'm getting rid of rum. Rum would be my...
Captain Morgan?
Yeah.
You getting rid of the Captain Morgan?
I almost never drink it unless we're going to like a tiki hut cocktail bar. Yeah,
rum is like
you can have a good time there, don't get me wrong.
Rum is like
it would be my last choice to drink.
It's like the one I feel like it's put in every mixed drink possible.
Rum?
Yeah.
I almost never order a mixed drink with rum. Again, unless I'm going to a place that is specifically known for it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
One's got to go. Driving edition. Speed bumps, one-way streets, rumble strips.
Oh, God, those are awful.
Or speed limits.
Rumble strips.
What are rumble strips?
So it's on the side of the road when you, like, they're there so when you veer off, if you're falling asleep, it wakes you up. The problem is when you go on 2-lane roads and they're doing construction, then you have to drive on the rumble strips. And that is so freaking annoying. That's mine.
Gotcha.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah.
As somebody who, like you, BK, has made countless trips to Colombia. 70? Oh, my.
That's awful.
Oh, boy.
When we drove to Tunica, now I remember where I went golfing. That was just...
Which state's that in?
Kentucky.
Mississippi, right?
Mississippi, that's where I think we were. That was just rumble strips for a good 3 hours. It's annoying. Fix your damn road.
I don't like one-way streets, man. I got to tell you, it really bothers me. Downtown, driving downtown... Listen, I get it. A lot of you have been down there a lot more often than I have probably, but it is constant that I am trying to go somewhere and then suddenly I can only go one way and then I've got to go 3 more blocks and then circle back. And one-way streets are an absolute nightmare.
Here's one thing to keep in mind when you're driving. Every one-way street can be a 2-way street. Just remember that.
Sage advice.
If you go fast enough.
Before,
Me too, man.
I've been downtown and I end up on a one-way street. Going the wrong direction, and then somebody honked at me, and I said, "Oh no, this is not going to end well."
That's when you honk back, and that's a one-way street game of chicken, and I always win.
I immediately flipped that. Yeah.
I went to a Walmart the other day because I had to pick something up, and you know how they have like the one direction when you go through the parking lot? Yeah, I say bleep that, and I just drive down the other direction.
You're the worst.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next, we'll hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind, put a bow on this thing here on 101 ESPN.
NBA finals are on ESPN. Thursday, Celtics and Mavericks. Game 1. Pregame at 6:30. Tip-off at 7:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN.
Have kids under 25? We can save you money at carltoninsurance.net.
How is your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so...
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario, live from the Car Shield studio on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
And Bradford, I'm Brandon Kiley. 2 straight shows that we won't be with the full trio here on BK and Ferrario. T-Bone out today. He's got some other stuff to do. Decided his other job was more important than us.
And then BK's one-upping us on Monday.
I'll be out on Monday. They want my talents in the morning show. Decided I'll go ahead and get up at 5 a.m. to be a part of that.
See how that one feels.
So if you have an opportunity, please turn on the morning show on Monday. Just leave your radio on. Make sure the ratings are as high as humanly possible Monday from 7 to 10 a.m. That would be excellent.
In fact, just tune your alarm clock to listen from 11 to 2.
Yeah, you can do that.
And then 2
to
to 6.
So I'll be in on the morning show on Monday with Brooke and Rockio. I'll be back in with the guys on Tuesday. It will be, from what I understand, Alex, T-Bone, and Grant, I believe, on Monday from 11 to 2
and
here on
we've already had a group meeting that will decide if you can come back on Tuesday.
That's fair. No, totally fair.
If we have success, then you can just go about your business.
They said, hey, BK, you could do the morning show and the middays if you want to. And I said, well.
I would have done both. I would have just been like, you know what? I respect this business, and I'm here for you.
You're a grinder.
I'm here for you.
There would have been a point in time probably 2 years ago that I would have done that.
I think I did do that 3 years ago, and I was like, this is a bad decision.
I've done our show and the afternoon show before, and I know you've done the same thing. It's a lot of radio. What we do is not hard. It is not strenuous. you just get to the end and you're like, man, I'm mentally fried because you have to pay attention to what somebody else says for 7 consecutive hours. I'm like, that doesn't sound like the most difficult thing in the world until you do it for 7 consecutive hours. Like, damn, I'm really tired. And when I wake up at 5 a.m., which is not something that I typically do, I'm typically up around 7:30-ish. That's going to be a rough wake-up call on Monday, to put it mildly, especially after Sunday Night Baseball for the Cardinals.
Yeah. I started noticing trends when I would fill in on extra shows, is my voice would be gone the next day. To be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Probably because I do a lot of yelling on this show. And then, you got to temper the expectations. A lot of up and downs.
So anyways, Alex and T-Bone will have you guys taken care of on Monday from 11 to 2. I will be in from 7 to 10. So please turn on your radio at 7 o'clock to listen to that if you would be so kind. All right, let's put a bow on this today, Alex. BK and Ferrario Rewind. Big story this weekend, Cardinals versus the Phillies. Masyn Winn not in the lineup tonight against the Phillies. I totally forgot about this. Somebody on the text line brought this up a little bit earlier. I do wonder, I think there was a play when he was running out a play at first base where he did kind of tweak something the other day against the Reds. Maybe there was something there where, hey, let's make sure that he's 100% ready to go for Saturday. Again, I'm looking for explanations. I don't totally think it makes a lot of sense to have him out. Actually, I flat out do not agree with the decision, if he's healthy, to have him out of the lineup tonight against the Phillies. I think you should start out with him as your shortstop. And if you're not going to have him out there, I think Jose Fermin, who has played 11 games at shortstop this year in AAA, should be the starter instead of Brandon Crawford, who has been one of the 10 worst hitters in Major League Baseball over the past 2 seasons. Yeah. And he's 3 for 35 so far this year. And he's the slowest non-catcher DH in baseball this year. Not opinion, based upon the numbers. So I don't like that they're starting Brandon Crawford today, but that's their decision that they've made.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I just feel like you're a team that's reeling right now, and I understand you feel like you can take on the world, and it doesn't matter who's in or out because you just got that hot streak in you. I would not take one of my best hitters out of the lineup, even if you feel like you want to make sure you can manage him for 162. There are going to be other series in the next couple of weeks that you can manage his workload. I'm not managing it against the best team right now in the National League and a team that I can really tell Major League Baseball, hey, we're not just here for a hot streak. We're here for an extended run because you are in the same position that you were in last year when you went on that hot streak for 3 straight weeks. You put yourself 5 games out of first place, and then you laid eggs. I don't want to see you start a egg lay against the Phillies. An egg lay, that's correct. I said it. This feels a lot like where you lose a series against the Phillies, you lose a series against the Astros. I have. But guess what they didn't do in 4 straight series? Continue to sit Masyn Winn so Brandon Crawford could play a freaking game. Without Lars Nootbaar, this is not the decision I would be making right now to put Brandon Crawford in my lineup.
Well, they've won a bunch of series in a row. They swept the Baltimore Orioles. They beat Chicago in the 2 games that you were able to play them.
Masyn Winn was in the lineup for all those, correct?
This is a big series against Philadelphia. There's no other way to put it. You got Fox tomorrow, national television, ESPN on Sunday, national TV game there. Back-to-back weekends of 2 nationally televised games for the St. Louis Cardinals. You got Gray, you got Lynn. Those are the 2 games over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Michaelis on the mound tonight. I don't love the matchup. Don't love the matchup of Michaelis versus Aaron Nola. We've seen this before. It didn't work out so well for the Cardinals when they did that against them in the playoffs. The reason why I view this as such a significant series, Alex, is twofold. One, to find out if this is real. Are the Cardinals going to be able to sustain this positive stretch of games? 2, it's one of the last times you're going up against a real threat in the National League in the first month of the season, or in the next month of the season. You got Philly here, but then you got Houston, Colorado, Pittsburgh, the Cubs, Miami, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Washington, Chicago. You have a 2-game set against Kansas City. They've been good, but I don't think anybody views them as a World Series team. You have 1 other series the rest of the first half, and that's against Atlanta starting on June 24th. This is a measuring stick series. I know people say that we say this all the time. I don't. I've just had a lot of measuring stick series lately against Milwaukee and against Baltimore. I want to see him prove it again. Prove it to people like Alex that are still not ready to jump on board. If you go out there and win 2 out of 3 against Philadelphia, people nationally are going to start taking notice. You'll finally be above 500. You'll have done it now against Philadelphia, Chicago, and Baltimore. You'll have done it against quality pitching on a consistent basis. That's what people want to see. Do it again. Do it against the best teams that the league has to offer. That's what they have the opportunity to do this weekend. I think they win 1 out of 3. I think they win tomorrow against the Phillies with Sonny Gray on the mound. That to me is the spot. Sunday's the swing game. I don't think they're going to win tonight. I don't think they're in a good spot to do so. Sunday, you got Taijuan Walker on the mound. He is the weakest of their starting pitchers. That is your opportunity. I don't love Lance Lynn against a bunch of lefties, I'll tell you that. I think Sunday is an offense game. You've got to have your best offensive performance out there. So I think they win 1 out of 3. I hope they prove me wrong, and I hope Sunday they get a big performance offensively.
Yeah, I'm on the same wavelength. I think they win 1 out of 3. I do think they win with Sonny Gray on the mound. My concern with them is this is the downfall that we saw last year where you start to spiral. Hopefully they avoid that because you get the Houston Astros that maybe you can compete a little bit better against. But yeah, I only see 1 win in this series against Philly. And even that 1 win, I'm a little skeptical about because your offense is going to have to find a way to carry you.
And I'm also intrigued to see what this offense is able to accomplish in the latter portions of games. For good reason, we know that the pitching options, the starters for Philadelphia, they're getting the lion's share of the headlines, the ink. You're going to face Nola. You have Suarez 9-1 tomorrow, and then Walker. We'll see what transpires on Sunday. But to me, guys, this Philadelphia bullpen has been somewhat underrated on the national level this season. May not have the marquee names, but I think if you get into more of an offensive showcase type of affair on Sunday, BK, as you had said, it'll be interesting to see what this St. Louis lineup is able to do in the later innings, and similarly, kind of flipping it a little bit as well. The bullpen, too. How many different times are we going to see the matchups lefty on lefty? Now you do have the full supplement or full arsenal from which to draw in adding Liberatore back into that mix along with Romero and King.
St. Louis City SC, we're planning to spend more time on this before the news came out about Masyn Winn not being in the lineup tonight. But St. Louis City SC, big one this weekend against Messi. They're going up against Inter Miami, one of the best team in MLS so far this year. Alex, there's not a whole lot that I can judge City on right now, especially in a game like this. But this is one of those, like, there are certain players that I stop myself when I have the opportunity to see them against my team, and I make sure that I'm in front of the television or at the game to be able to watch them. Messi's one of those guys. Mm-hmm. It's very rare in soccer for me personally to have a player like that I have to go watch this. Messi's that guy. This is appointment television, in my opinion, for City fans to be able to see him against a team that you know. There are very few players in other sports that fit that criteria for me. Like if Shohei Ohtani is going up against the Cardinals and they're in town, I want to be at least one of those games to be able to see him against the Cardinals. I went to the game last year that he pitched against the Cardinals just to make sure that I was there for it. There's not a whole lot of them, though, man. Patrick Mahomes is one of those guys for me in the NFL. I want to make sure that I see him as often as I possibly can. I went to as many LeBron games as I could. I've been to 3 of them to make sure that I see him in person. Messi's one of those guys, and to be able to see that this weekend against City is going to be pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember Messi's first game in the MLS, and I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I found myself watching that game that didn't even include City SC because it was his first game, and I wanted to see what that looks like. And you're right, this is appointment television to see one of the best play against your team, and you really don't get that many opportunities. I've missed opportunities to see some of the greats play. I only got to see LeBron play once. I've missed seeing Shohei Ohtani pitch. I got to see Albert's final season here, but when you get to see something like this, you have to pounce on that opportunity.
Yeah. I think the last, by the way, St. Louis player to have this was Albert.
Yeah.
On a national stage where he's coming to your town and you got to be there to watch this guy be the best at his craft. I think Albert was the last one that really had that kind of national appeal as well. For Alex Ferrario and Bradford Bruns, who did a fantastic job today filling in for Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, T-Bone, and Grant will have you guys taken care of from 11 to 2 on Monday. I will be on the morning show. Please tune in if you can from 7 to 10 o'clock on Monday morning for the opening drive. It'll be me, Brooke, and Matt Rocchio. Enjoy your weekend this weekend. Hopefully the Cardinals take 2 out of 3 at a minimum against the Phillies. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. The Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.